Chapter 2694. A Beautiful Misunderstanding. 3. Alliance Master 5 naturally didn't object to Alliance Master 2's suggestion. The two of them led their subordinates into the teleportation formation. When they arrived at the General Union, they were surprised to find Lung Ruoxue waiting for them at the teleportation array with Tsang in her arms. "Have we reached an agreement?" Lung Ruoxue said nonchalantly. When the two heard this, they were shocked and quickly nodded. "Well, live in harmony. That's for the best. No matter what you're thinking, don't drag me down," he said. Lung Ruoxue warned. "Understood, we will do our best." The two of them promised. Lung Ruoxue nodded and said, "Let's go to the General Union's encampment. I'll lead the way," the 5 Alliance Masters said. After he finished speaking, he walked straight to the front. Lung Ruoxue followed behind him, followed by the 2nd Alliance Master and his subordinates. As soon as their team appeared, they attracted a lot of attention on the streets of the General Union. Many brave people were talking about them in private, but no one knew what they were doing here. Suddenly, someone recognized Lung Ruoxue. This time, all the onlookers exploded. What is Lung Ruoxue doing here? Did the 5th and 2nd Master work together to capture him? It's possible. It seems like Lung Ruoxue isn't that great after all. The discussion of the crowd naturally could not escape the ears of Lung Ruoxue and the rest. When they heard this, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were all speechless. Alliance Master 2, Alliance Master 5, and the rest were so nervous that their hearts were trembling. They were afraid that the passers-by's comments would anger Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue obviously didn't lower herself to the level of the passers-by. She continued to carry Azure and walked on the road calmly. When the onlookers saw that the other party didn't refute their words at all, they were even more certain of their speculations. The 2nd and 5th Alliance Masters' hearts, which had been in their throats, finally settled down when they finally arrived at the Ascender General Alliance's encampment with great difficulty. Wiping the cold sweat on his forehead, the 2nd Alliance Master couldn't help but explain, "Miss Lung, don't mind the words of those passers-by. They don't know the current situation of the Ascender Alliance at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't be discussing it like this." "Yep, that's right. Only the higher-ups of the Union know about the General Union, and the news hasn't spread yet, so don't listen to their nonsense," the 5th Alliance Master said, not to be outdone. "You're overthinking it. Do I look like I mind? However, if you can hand me over to the people of the Divine Master's estate, you'll have done a great service." Lung Ruoxue laughed lightly as she teased. The 2nd and 5th Masters broke out in cold sweat. Hand Lung Ruoxue over to the Divine Master's residence? Did they have the guts? "Ha! Alliance Master 2, Alliance Master 5, you've done a great job this time." At this moment, a proud voice rang in Lung Ruoxue and the rest's ears. Following that, the arrogant 5th Elder led a group of elders and walked out of the main entrance of the General Alliance's encampment. He glanced arrogantly at Lung Ruoxue, who was standing at the main entrance. Then, he turned his loving gaze to the 2nd and 5th Masters and praised them. "You've done well in this matter." "Can I ask, what are they doing well?" The 2nd and 5th Masters were confused. They really didn't do anything worthy of the 5th Elder's praise. One had to know that they had brought Lung Ruoxue here to cause trouble, yet 5th Elder actually praised them. What was this? The two of them were in a dilemma. However, when they saw Lung Ruoxue smiling as she stood at her original spot without saying a word, they tactfully kept their mouths shut. "Men, take Lung Ruoxue away and lock her up in the prison." After complimenting him, the 5th Elder loudly instructed his subordinates. He was so proud of himself. The moment Lung Ruoxue entered the Ascender Alliance's sphere of influence, he had received the news. Initially, he thought that Lung Ruoxue was here to cause trouble. At that time, he was shocked. Later on, he received news that the 5th and 2nd Alliance Masters had contacted Lung Ruoxue. At that time, he was so furious that he wanted to rush over and capture the two traitors immediately. However, he held back his anger as he was a timid person. However, he had just found out that the 2nd and 5th Alliance Masters were not traitors. They had personally captured Lung Ruoxue and brought her to the General Alliance. How could he not be happy? More importantly, at this very moment, he was completely shocked by the news of Lung Ruox's capture. He had completely forgotten how Lung Ruoxue had been captured. It had to be said that this was a beautiful misunderstanding. After knowing that Lung Ruoxue had come to the Ascender Alliance, Fifth Elder had been trying to keep a low profile and not take the initiative to start a conflict with her. Who asked his backer to be so drunk that he was in a mess and couldn't help him at all. Without a backer, he was nothing. Even if he wanted to deal with Lung Ruoxue, he didn't have the guts to. Fifth Elder, who had been keeping his eyes closed, only started to panic when he received a report from the guard that the second and fifth master had brought Lung Ruoxue over to the General Alliance. He definitely did not have the confidence to deal with Lung Ruoxue. Thanks, however, in the face of so many pairs of expectant eyes, he, who had only been the Alliance Master for a few days, absolutely couldn't lose face. Thus, he braced himself and brought a group of elders to the main entrance. Just as he reached the main entrance, he happened to hear the last half of Lung Ruox's sentence. Instantly, his heart was filled with joy. It turned out that he had misunderstood the second and fifth Alliance Masters. Not only did the two of them not betray the Ascender Alliance, but they had even used some unknown method to capture Lung Ruoxue and send her to the Divine Master's residence. Very good. Very good. This was definitely a great achievement. That was why he had praised the second and fifth masters so much. He was so excited that he couldn't think of anything else. The second master and the fifth master didn't understand why they were praised because it was different from what they had imagined. Now, when the two of them saw that the fifth elder had ordered for Lung Ruoxue to be locked up in the prison, they were instantly anxious. The battle hadn't even started yet. Why did you lock him up first? Would Lung Ruoxue be so obedient and not resist? The two of them were speechless at Fifth Elder's words. However, after receiving Lung Ruox's eye signal to tell them to calm down, the two of them could only gloomily and obediently keep their mouths shut. Following that, Lung Ruoxue was sent to a prison cell by the guards arranged by the Fifth Elder. After capturing Lung Ruoxue, Fifth Elder's mind was at ease. He continued to praise the second and fifth masters, saying that they had performed very well and that he would put them in an important position. From now on, they were one of his own. After promising the second and fifth Alliance Masters a bunch of empty checks, the fifth Elder sent them away. On the way out of the General Alliance, the second and fifth Masters felt dizzy, as if they were in a dream. How did this happen? They had clearly not done anything and were clearly on the same side as Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue was now locked up in a cell while they were treated as the trusted aides of the fifth Elder. What the hell is this? The two of them were so depressed that they wanted to buy a piece of tofu and knock themselves to death. Don't play with me like this, okay? The depressed Second Alliance Master didn't return to the Second Alliance. Instead, he went to the Fifth Alliance with the Fifth Alliance Master. Sitting in the Five Unions living room, the two sat face to face, frowning, neither saying a word. Suddenly, the Second Alliance Master slammed the table. Damn it, how did this happen? I don't know. I don't know what we've done to make the Fifth Elder misunderstand us like that. The Fifth Master pulled his hair in confusion. The Second Alliance Master also carefully recalled that they really didn't do anything. Why was the outcome of the matter different from what they had originally imagined? A thought flashed through his mind, and he suddenly said with some uncertainty, "Didn't Miss Lung say that if we could hand her over to the people of the Divine Master's estate, it would be considered a great contribution?" The Fifth Master blinked his eyes and nodded. "I did say that, but it can't be that just because of this sentence, Fifth Elder would misunderstand, right? It's not impossible. Don't be fooled by the Fifth Elder's boisterous appearance. In reality, he's still very afraid of Lung Ruoxue. In addition, he couldn't wait for this to happen. Thus, with his imagination, we've become the people who have contributed to the battle." The Second Alliance Master calmly analyzed. As a minor character, he understood the thoughts of people like the Fifth Elder. He was ambitious, but he was not that bold. He wanted to do something, but he was too timid. In addition, the new official wanted to perform well. Thus, a huge mistake appeared. And this mistake would definitely be a disaster for the Fifth Elder. At least, the second Alliance Master could already foresee the fifth Elder's fate. If that's the case, what should we do next? The fifth Master felt that the second Master's analysis was reasonable, but what was their next step? What were they supposed to do? The fifth Alliance Master was at a loss. Lung Ruoxue had not given them any instructions, so they could not just sit around and do nothing. Let's wait. The second Alliance Master, who had dealt with Lung Ruoxue before, said with experience. All right, just wait. The 5 Alliance Masters did not have any good ideas and did not dare to act on their own. Who knew if Lung Ruoxue had any other ideas? Unfortunately, he was in prison now. As for Lung Ruoxue, who was in the prison cell, she naturally had no idea about the conflict between the 2nd and 5th Alliance Masters. After she was caught, she was locked up alone. This made her a little dissatisfied. Hence, the moment the guard left, Lung Ruoxue immediately took out her cold shadow and rudely broke the lock on the cell door. She then walked out of the cell as if there was no one else around and even swaggered around the cell to take a look. It had to be said that the cells of the Ascendants, General Alliance, could be considered clean. Although there was also some smell, it was obviously better than the other cells she had been to. She was very satisfied with the environment here. After taking a look around, Lung Ruoxue walked with elegant steps towards the cell with the most prisoners. Standing at the prison entrance, Lung Ruoxue graciously greeted the people in the prison. Hello everyone, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to meet all of you here. Chapter 2695. Coal in the Snow? 1. Hearing that someone seemed to be greeting them, the people in the cell who were deep in thought quickly raised their heads and were stunned. Lung Ruoxue. Everyone was shocked. Why would he see Lung Ruoxue here? At first, everyone thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. However, after double-checking, they realized that Lung Ruoxue was indeed standing right in front of them. As for Lung Ruoxue's appearance, there was no way they would mistake her. Who asked this woman to be so famous in the God world? Why are you here? With a stomach full of questions, Li Jing asked the question on everyone's mind. When the crowd heard this question, they stared at Lung Ruoxue without blinking, waiting for her to answer. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly when she heard that. She then said with a face full of hidden bitterness, I was sent here by your 5th elder. She was implying that she had been caught. However, the people in the prison cell obviously did not believe her words. Would this little girl be caught by that idiot 5th elder? Wasn't this a fantasy story? It would be possible if she came to him on her own accord? Wait a minute? He delivered himself to her door? What was she trying to do? The question marks in everyone's hearts grew. Only Li Jing knew that Lung Ruoxue had come to the Ascender Alliance because of him. Otherwise, why would this little girl appear in the prison? This thought warmed Li Jing's heart. He did not expect that the one who came to their rescue after they were captured would be their enemy in name. This was truly unbelievable. However, at this moment he heard Lung Ruoxue's voice. Your 5th elder is too unrefined. He actually locked me up in a cell. How lonely is that? It's better to have a few companions. Hearing this, everyone was speechless. Li Jing's mouth could not help but twitch. At this moment, the only thought in their hearts was that this woman's requirements were so high that she wanted to have a companion while in prison. Alright. It seemed like she had most likely come here to keep them company. Everyone was depressed, especially the Alliance Master, because Lung Ruoxue had seen him at his most depressed and embarrassing moment. Since you've been captured by the 5th elder, why didn't you stay in your cell? Why are you running around? Finally, an elder from the Ascender Alliance could not help but ask curiously. The prison was empty. I didn't like it, so I came out. Lung Ruoxue explained with a smile. How did you get out? An elder continued to ask. They also wanted to go out. I broke the lock and came out. Lung Ruoxue's answer was very concise. When everyone heard this, they collectively felt their balls hurt. The lock of this cell was specially made. How could it be so easy to break? One must know that they had thought of many ways these days, but they couldn't get the lock to open. Now that the lock was broken with a single word, they were so ashamed. They felt inferior. Lung Ruoxue saw that after they heard her words, Their expressions were extremely conflicted, yet they didn't say a word. She felt that they didn't believe her words, so she directly took out the cold shadow and gave it a light swing. With a cold glint, the lock fell to the ground. Thanks, a crisp bang woke up everyone who was lost in their thoughts. When they looked up, they saw Lung Ruoxue holding an extremely sharp and cold sword. The lock was at her feet. Instantly, everyone's lips twitched and they were speechless. It really was smashed open. It was wrong. It was split open by a sword. What a sharp divine weapon. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the cold shadow in Lung Ruoxue's hand. They had even forgotten that they were still prisoners. Feeling the burning heat from everyone's eyes, the cold shadow in Lung Ruoxue's hand started to tremble and let out a woo-woo sound. Lung Ruoxue knew that this was the cold shadow's protest. The current cold shadow had been nurtured by her to become more and more intelligent, and it had also produced a weapon spirit. However, the cold shadow's weapon spirit was still too small and could not transform. It could only communicate with her in the simplest language, and at this moment, the cold shadow was saying that it hated the wretched gazes of these old men looking at it. He had even asked Lung Ruoxue for help. Lung Ruoxue shuddered and urgently reminded everyone, "Wake up, all of you. Don't look at my sword with such passionate eyes. It's not happy. If you keep looking, I can't guarantee that it won't attack you." Her words were definitely not alarmist talk. Everyone present could also feel the warning that the sword was sending to them. They could only look away with black lines on their heads. Seeing that they had finally calmed down, Lung Ruoxue smiled charmingly. She then opened the cell door and walked into their cell. The crowd looked at Lung Ruoxue's actions in a daze, not knowing what she was trying to do. Lung Ruoxue didn't explain further. She just walked to the empty seat beside Li Jing and sat down. What was this? Everyone's eyes were filled with question marks. Lung Ruoxue smiled calmly, then said, "Since we're all in jail, I suggest we have a chat to avoid boredom." Chat? Talk about what? Experience in prison? The people present, including Li Jing, did not feel that there was anything to chat about in this place. Furthermore, when he saw Lung Ruoxue's actions, Li Jing could not be sure if she was here to save them. She was here to save someone. Did she plan to chat with them as if nothing had happened? Who would be in the mood to chat at this time? However, Li Jing found it even more difficult to believe that she had not come to save someone and had really been captured by the Ascender Alliance. After the trip to the land of demons, he was already very clear about the strength of Lung Ruoxue's side. It was impossible for the fifth elder and the rest of the idiots to capture Lung Ruoxue. But now, these two thoughts kept appearing in his mind, and he was almost confused. "What, don't you want to talk?" Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked innocently when she saw that no one was saying anything. "Talk about what?" Li Jing had no choice but to cooperate. "Let's talk about how you were caught. From my observation, the firepower of the fifth elder's side is obviously not as good as yours, but you've been locked up in prison. This is really puzzling." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Then she took out a small table, a pot of tea, a few teacups, and some freshly made desserts. Seeing this, Li Jing's mouth twitched again. He was really planning to have a tea party with them. They were really well prepared. Li Jing and the others broke out in cold sweat. Besides that, they also wanted to add that they were equally puzzled about Lung Ruoxue's imprisonment. "Come, don't stand on ceremony, everyone. It's rare for me to treat you to tea today. You know, you usually have to pay for a cup of tea from me." Seeing that no one spoke, Lung Ruoxue took it that they were embarrassed and took the initiative to greet them warmly. She even poured a cup of tea for each of them. But after hearing her words, the black lines on everyone's foreheads became even more. The teacups in front of them felt like they were burning their hands, and they didn't dare to move at all. Chapter 2696, Coal in the Snow? 2. Seeing that they didn't move for a long time, Lung Ruoxue drooped her shoulders in disappointment. There seemed to be tears in her beautiful eyes. Everyone was terrified and kept winking at the Alliance Master and Li Jing. Li Jing had no choice but to say, "We," however, he only said 2 words before he could not continue. "You bastard! This little girl actually came up with this?" This is too much, who can stand this? It was as if they had bullied Lung Ruoxue. I swear to the heavens. They clearly didn't do anything right. Unfortunately, just as he thought of this, Azure's displeased gaze immediately drifted over to him. Then, everyone heard Azure Fire roar, "Damn it! You dare to bully my girl? You're really tired of living." Facing the enraged Azure, everyone was speechless. They really didn't do anything? When did he bully Lung Ruoxue? However, Song Kai didn't care so much. In its heart, if these people didn't answer Nyo's question, it was their fault. Quickly explain. Azure roared again, even deliberately releasing a bit of his pressure. In that instant, everyone in the prison, except Lung Ruoxue, felt the pressure increase. Some of the weaker elders' foreheads were covered in cold sweat as they looked at Song in fear. This little white cat's strength was so terrifying. Although he didn't know who this cat was, the tactful great elders still nudged Li Jing, signaling him to quickly explain and not make this little cat unhappy. At the same time, First Elder was certain that Lung Ruoxue was not captured by the Fifth Elder. With this little white cat around, the Fifth Elder and the others were no match for him. Li Jing laughed bitterly. He did not dare to delay any further and quickly told the truth. After Lung Ruoxue heard this, she sized up Li Jing and the Alliance Master, who was silent and had a dark expression on his face, before coming to a conclusion. Looking at your appearance, you really don't look like you've been poisoned. We are unable to use divine power right now. Li Jing said honestly. You're so lucky, you must have been poisoned by that bitch Wu Luan. When Azure heard this, he gloated. As far as it knew, the rippling mist bitch loved to use her own poison to refine all kinds of poisons, and what these people were feeling now should only be one of them. Good luck? Li Jing was depressed. How could he not think so? Is there a way to cure it? The similarly depressed Alliance Master saw that Song seemed to have some understanding of this poison and couldn't help but ask. There's a way. Azure smiled mysteriously. When Li Jing and the Alliance Master heard this, they immediately perked up their ears to listen, afraid that they would miss something. It can be removed by using the flower petals on the body of the mist ripple. Seeing the two of them looking forward to it, Azure smirked and added. The two of them immediately wilted when they heard that. They all knew that Rime Ice was a plant, and she was a god master. How could she give them petals of her own accord? Bruh, that's just daydreaming. The two thought of all kinds of possibilities, but in the end, they couldn't come up with a good idea. Song, who knew their thoughts, confirmed, it's the petal of a mist ripple bitch. She definitely won't take the initiative to give it to you. You must know that if she drops a petal, she will lose at least 1,000 years of cultivation, so don't even think about giving it to you. But I think you can go and rob. This is the fastest and most direct way. Thanks, snatching it. Wasn't that courting death? The two of them didn't comment on Song's useless suggestion. They could even see that the kitten was clearly playing with them. Who would instigate others to do something that was impossible? What was the difference between this and seeking death? The two of them were so depressed that they almost went crazy. Who knew that Shirt Song would continue? Of course, there's still a certain level of difficulty in snatching it from you. With your current strength, it's like throwing meat buns at a dog, or sending flower fertilizer to that killjoy bitch. So, you can give up on this suggestion. He knew that they couldn't complete it, but he still told them. When the two of them heard this, they really wanted to buy a piece of tofu and knock their heads to death. How could he play with people like this? However, Li Jing seemed to have picked up on something from the kitten's words, so he humbly asked, I wonder if Senior has a better idea? There are. Azure nodded. This was the reason why he had said so much nonsense. What is it? Li Jing was a little impatient. You can buy flower petals from me. Azure had a kind expression. Does Senior have it? Li Jing could not believe it. Yes, as many as you want. Azure laughed complacently. The last time Fog had fled in a sorry state, it had left behind a lot of flower petal fragments. Any one of them was enough to detoxify them. Then can you sell us a piece? Li Jing asked carefully. Sure. Azure nodded. If it wasn't for sale, why did it make so many preparations? Do you have nothing to do? May I know how much it costs? Li Jing asked the most important question, and he knew that this was probably the cat's real purpose. Just as Li Jing held his breath and waited for the cat to make a big demand, Song suddenly waved a paw. Li Jing and the Alliance Master blinked. What was the meaning of this? The two of them didn't understand. Moreover, this number was not easy to guess. It could be 10,000, 100,000, or even 1,000,000. More importantly, they didn't know what the little cat wanted. You want Jingshi? Li Jing asked. Yes. Azure smiled and nodded. 100,000 top-grade crystals? Li Jing didn't dare to say that it was too low, much less too high. He only said a medium price that he and the Alliance Master could happily accept. Of course, it wasn't that they didn't value their lives, but they had just started to bargain. He had to leave some room. Azure shook his head. 1,000,000 top-grade crystals? The Alliance Master gritted his teeth. Azure shook his head again. 10,000,000 top-grade crystals? The Alliance Master's face turned white, and he wanted to cry but had no tears in his heart. He knew that the other party would not sell the flower petals for such a cheap price. Azure still shook his head. It can't be 100 million top-grade crystals, right? Li Jing's face was deathly pale. Although he had a good relationship with Leng Ruoxue and the others, 100 million top-grade crystals was truly too much. He was afraid that after buying that petal, their Ascender Alliance would go bankrupt. However, if it was compared to their lives and the Alliance Masteress, they would have to pay even if they had to sell everything they had, let alone 100 million. However, who knew that after Li Jing said 100 million, Song still shook his head. Then, Li Jing offered another billion, but Song still didn't agree. In the end, when the price dropped to 10 billion, Li Jing and the Alliance Master's emotions could no longer be described as fear. Their lives were priceless. No amount of money could buy it. This time, they had a deep experience. Chapter 2697, Coal in the Snow? 3. But even so, Song was still not satisfied. Li Jing and the Alliance Master were in tears. This was the rhythm of wanting them to die. Senior, we really can't guess how much you want to sell the petals of rime ice for. Can you give us a number? Don't make us guess. Li Jing pleaded pitifully. This was definitely testing the endurance of their hearts, wasn't it? A top-grade crystal, Song said with a look of disdain. These two idiots, why didn't they know to start from the same beginning? When the two of them heard the price, they collapsed to the ground in an exaggerated manner. The others were also dumbfounded, not understanding why the situation had suddenly become so dramatic. A top-grade crystal. Weren't God Lord Mist Ripple's flower petals a little too worthless? Everyone was extremely frightened. What, you want it? Seeing everyone's fearful faces, Song's mood was great. You're really only selling it for one top-grade crystal? Li Jing's heart was beating wildly, and he could not believe what he had just heard. Of course, it's already good enough for that piece of crap to be worth one top-grade crystal. If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't want to sell it at a low price and didn't want to give it to you for free, I would have only wanted one low-grade crystal. But I also have to think about your status. You are the Ascender General Union's chief and vice chief, so the things I sell must be in line with your status, don't you think so? Azure said with an expression that said I'm doing this for your own good. However, his words not only slapped Fog in the face, but also caused Li Jing and the Alliance Master to be implicated. Li Jing and the Alliance Master were even more depressed. It seemed that in this cat's heart, their identities were only worth one top-grade crystal, so this was too much of a blow. However, they knew that if Wu Qin knew about this, she would be even more depressed than they were. And Song was indeed deliberately trying to mock Fog, who let that woman bully his girl. It couldn't kill the woman easily, but couldn't it find trouble for her? Just like that, the two sides came to an agreement. In the end, Li Jing and the Alliance Master each bought a petal fragment at the price of 2 top-grade crystals. After the transaction was completed, Song Yu kindly told the two that it was best to immediately refine the flower petals into pills, otherwise there might be trouble. When the two heard this, they immediately became nervous. What should he do? Under such conditions, where were they supposed to find an alchemist? All of a sudden, an idea came to Li Jing's mind. He looked at Leng Ruoxue with a burning gaze. Shuer, you're an alchemist, right? Yeah, but I don't have a certificate. Leng Ruoxue nodded. It's fine. The Alliance Master said nonchalantly. At this time, he couldn't care so much. The most important thing was to refine the flower petals into medicinal pills and detoxify their poison. But my price is very expensive. Are you sure you want to find me to refine pills? Leng Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and kindly reminded him. How expensive is it? The Alliance Master couldn't help but ask. In order to refine your detoxification, Dan, in addition to the petals of miasma, you will also need a lot of ordinary herbs. What if I provide the ordinary herbs? When you leave this place, you will have to pay me 10 times the reward or the herbs of the same value. If you provide the herbs yourself, you will only have to pay 3 times the amount of the herbs required for alchemy. You can decide for yourself. Leng Ruoxue gave him 2 options. When the Alliance Master heard this, he was immediately conflicted. The price was indeed extraordinarily high. However, he could clearly feel that the flower petal in his hand was getting restless and restless, so immediately refining the flower petal into a pill was the right choice. After thinking it through, the Alliance Master no longer hesitated and directly expressed that he was willing to pay 10 times the reward. He also hoped that Leng Ruoxue would be able to refine the antidote for them as soon as possible. Don't worry, it'll only take a few minutes. Leng Ruoxue was very satisfied with the other party's attitude. She then took out a small and exquisite pill furnace and laid out all sorts of medicinal herbs. The types and dosage were all clearly marked out. She was honest with everyone. After letting the Alliance Master see it clearly, Leng Ruoxue's hands moved quickly. Lighting the fire, putting in the herbs, and so on, the entire set of movements was as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water, dazzling the eyes of the people present, and making them unable to catch their eyes. In a moment, the pill was freshly made. When Li Jing and the Alliance Master received the 2 blood-red pills, they were so excited that tears filled their eyes. They had been sulking for several days, and now they could finally recover their divine power. Without any hesitation, they swallowed the pill. Immediately after, the 2 of them clearly felt a hot and warm current flowing through their dantian, making them extremely comfortable. Then, the 2 of them tested their divine power, and sure enough, they had all recovered. Young Miss Leng, many thanks for the pill you refined. In his excitement, the Alliance Master did not forget to thank Leng Ruoxue. Thanks, don't worry, you've already paid. Leng Ruoxue replied indifferently. Alright. The Alliance Master could feel that although this little girl had refined pills for them, she was still angry. She was probably still angry about what had happened. The Alliance Master was in a dilemma. However, after witnessing Leng Ruoxue's alchemy skills, it strengthened his determination to befriend her. He was just not sure if she would give them this opportunity. After thinking for a while, the Alliance Master asked, Miss Leng, can you tell us why you were caught? Everyone present wanted to know about this. Hence, the moment the Alliance Master spoke, everyone immediately turned their attention to Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and said innocently, I don't know either. I originally invited the 2nd and 5th Alliance Masters to come to the Ascender Alliance to cause trouble. I don't know how, but your family's 5th Elder misunderstood and thought that I had been captured by the 2nd and 5th Alliance Masters and sent to him. So, he locked me up. Her words were very casual, but the people who heard it were all drenched in cold sweat. They knew that the 5th Elder's brain wasn't working well. Otherwise, why would he make such a low-level mistake? However, it was also fortunate that the 5th Elder was extremely stupid, which gave them a chance to be saved. Wait, something doesn't seem right. The Great Elder, who clearly felt that they had overlooked something, thought carefully and couldn't help but ask, when you were captured by the 5th Elder, you didn't resist? Why should I resist? They have a lot of people, I need to be more practical. Leng Ruoxue said matter-of-factly. Hearing what she said, everyone present felt their balls hurt again. Practical knowledge? Was there such a practical person? This bastard clearly wanted to see the world in chaos. all right? At this moment, no matter how stupid the crowd was, they could tell that Lung Ruoxue had definitely been captured on purpose. The poor fifth elder was still daydreaming. The crowd started to sympathize with the fifth elder. Then what's going on with the second and fifth alliance masters? After sighing and sympathizing for a while, the great elder asked again. I'm here to cause trouble, so of course I have to find someone who knows the way. They are the guides I found for myself. Besides, they know that you're in trouble and want to save you, so they're very cooperative with me. Lung Ruoxue put in a few good words for Alliance Master 2 and Alliance Master 5. After all, those two were half her people. As the saying goes, it's good to have acquaintances. Of course, she was not willing to let others take advantage of such a great benefit. The Ascender Alliance still has some loyal members. Good. Very good. Sure enough, the General Master was very satisfied after hearing this, and his impression of the second and fifth masters improved a lot. One must know that he was originally against promoting the current second alliance master to the position. However, with many elders speaking up for him, he had no choice but to agree. Where's the 5 alliance masters? He was also a mediocre person who had never had any outstanding performance, but now it seemed that those 2 people were also hiding their true strength. At the very least, he had to be absolutely loyal to them, which was much more important than strength. After all, one's strength could be slowly improved, but loyalty was quite rare. Especially at this time, the other party did not hit them when they were down and even wanted to save them. What a rare and valuable quality. The Alliance Master decided that he would reward the 2 of them handsomely after he dealt with the 5th Elder and the other traitors. Lung Ruoxue wasn't interested in his thoughts, and she didn't want to know either. However, the Alliance Master's words made her speechless. Wasn't this fellow too easy to coax? She had only said a few good words, and she was so sure that he was loyal? Alright, she would just take it as the other party being loyal. In any case, this was also a fact that she wanted to create. However, she couldn't help but complain. It really wasn't easy for the Ascender Alliance to develop to its current scale with such a soft-hearted chief. Lung Ruoxue laughed for a while before she said seriously, "Since you're all fine, can you leave now?" "Sure." The Alliance Master nodded his head in a daze. These words made him even more certain that Lung Ruoxue had come specially to save them. Instantly, he was moved beyond words. What a good man. He actually came all the way here to save them. If it wasn't for the inappropriate occasion, he really wanted to cry out loud. He didn't expect that when they were in trouble, the one who came to save them was actually his enemy in name. Although this fact would make people feel a little depressed, who could say that this wasn't sending coal in the snow? At this moment, not only did the Alliance Master think so, but the First Elder and the others also realized that he was here to do good. What a noble sentiment this was. He was definitely worthy of their commendation. Of course, he had to wait until he left this place and dealt with the traitors. After reinvigorated themselves, under the leadership of the Alliance Master, the Ascender Alliance's people stepped out of the prison door with their heads held high and were ready to fight. They had been too aggrieved when they were captured previously. This time, they had to avenge their humiliation no matter what. Lung Ruoxue carried Song and walked with Li Jing at the back of the group. "Shuer, I thank you for coming to save us." Li Jing expressed his thanks via voice transmission. "You're welcome. I'm here to see you for the sake of my god brothers." "Oh right, remember to pay me after you're done," Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Li Jing was speechless again. Was this girl so into money? However, after thinking about it carefully, they really didn't have the obligation to save them. So, he was completely taking advantage of his descendants. Chapter 2698. Inhuman 1. Li Jing's feelings were extremely complicated, but Lung Ruoxue had no interest in caring about his feelings. After following the large group out of the prison, she saw that the Alliance Master and the rest had already subdued the guards and were preparing to find the traitor, 5th Elder, to settle the score. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had been released from prison, the Alliance Master nodded at her and led the elders to the 5th Elder's residence. At the same time, Alliance Master 5, who had just returned to Alliance 5, and Alliance Master 2, who had shamelessly gone to visit them, had also received Lung Ruox's notice and rushed over to perform. When they arrived at the fifth elder's residence, the crowd first cleaned up the guards in the courtyard and then directly blocked the fifth elder in his room. At this moment, the fifth elder was preparing to take off his clothes and take a nap. This was because he had to celebrate with the other elders later on for capturing Lung Ruoxue, the biggest threat to them. When the General Alliance Master led the group into his room, he happened to take off half of his clothes. Then both parties were stunned. The Alliance Master and the others didn't expect that their enemy would meet in such a situation. The other party was actually preparing to sleep. The hand that was taking off his clothes immediately froze when he saw them. His eyes were even wide open. It was obvious that the other party was too surprised by their sudden appearance. In fact, the word surprised was not enough to describe Fifth Elder's current mood. It was an absolute shock, wasn't it? Who wouldn't feel guilty and afraid when they saw the former leader they had harmed suddenly appear? Especially at such a relaxed time, it was even more unbearable for such a thing to happen. After being stunned for a long while, the fifth elder stammered. She heard the fifth elder say, "Why are you here?" The Alliance Master sneered and said with a faint smile, "Shouldn't the fifth elder ask us how you got out of prison? How did you guys get out?" The fifth elder obediently added. In fact, he had said this out of habit. He was used to being a lackey. When he heard the leader's intentions, he would always unconsciously want to satisfy it. He was still not used to showing off in front of the Alliance Master, and he even felt scared when he saw the Alliance Master. "I should be the one who let them out." Lung Ruoxue chimed in with a smile. When Fifth Elder heard this, he was instantly enraged and directed all his anger towards Lung Ruoxue. "Damn it! How could you do that? Don't you know that you're also my prisoner? So what if I know? Do you think that the Ascender General Union's prison can hold me?" Lung Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Don't be too proud. The people of the Godlord's estate are still in our Ascender Alliance. They won't let you off." The fifth elder's face was red with anger as he threatened. "Just as well, I didn't plan on letting them go." Lung Ruoxue smiled lightly, causing the fifth elder's anger to rise. "And you?" Azure added indifferently. Then he stretched out his furry little claws and caught the fifth elder, who was jumping up and down, in his claws. He directly carried him over. What do you want to do?" The fifth elder, who was being held up like a little chick, asked in horror. Damn it. The other party's claws were so sharp, he better not cut his skin. Who knew that just as the fifth elder thought of this, Song's claw would slash across the fifth elder's chubby face, leaving behind a claw mark that was neither deep nor shallow. "Thanks, now you know what I want to do?" Song asked with a smile after doing something bad. You're too despicable. I won't let you off." The fifth elder was so angry that blood was rushing to his head. His face had turned purple and his eyes were so wide that they almost popped out. However, Song didn't care about the fifth elder's words at all. Instead, he continued to smile evilly. "Old man, what do you want to do to me?" "I don't want to let you go either. Tell me, who will be the final winner between the two of us?" Song's curious expression made the Alliance Master and the others speechless. They couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for the fifth elder. Looking at the situation, they would not be able to get a share of the fifth elder. In fact, if it was possible, they still hoped to get rid of the fifth elder internally. However, when they saw the kitten in front of them acting as if the fifth elder was already in its grasp, none of them dared to snatch the food from it. After thinking this through, the Alliance Master and the others turned around almost at the same time, not looking at the fifth elder who was pleading for help with his eyes. For an ingrate, any outcome would be self-inflicted. The Alliance Master and the others decided to ignore the fifth elder. Seeing this, the fifth elder couldn't help but curse in his heart. This was really disloyal. They were all members of the Ascender Alliance. How could they allow a cat to bully their own family on their own territory? Too much. This is too much. At this moment, the fifth elder had already forgotten how he had treated the Alliance Master and the others. When it came to betraying others, if he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. However, some people were like this. They had completely different expectations for themselves and others. What he did was natural and right, and if others did the same, they would be guilty of unforgivable crimes. At this moment, the fifth elder's heart was filled with extreme hatred. However, facing the little kitten that had grabbed him, he felt an inexplicable fear in his heart. This was rather inconceivable. However, he didn't have the chance to think about it. Song's claws scratched his face again, causing him to cry out in pain. He glared at Song with fire in his eyes. Unfortunately, Song didn't care about the other party's reaction at all and suggested to Lung Ruoxue with a smirk, "Girl, I remember that you have to raise your beast taming level, right? Let's see how he is? Can I make up for your number?" Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue's face darkened. This was a human, not a beast, all right? "You bastard! I'm a human." Seeing this, the fifth elder also roared in anger. "In my heart, there's no difference whether you're a human or a beast. You can be tamed anyway," Azure said with an unconcerned smile. The fifth elder was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He immediately started to resist. However, no matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free from Song's grip. This fact made the fifth elder extremely depressed. How did this happen? How did this happen? The fifth elder was filled with grief and indignation. He wanted to launch a sneak attack, but before he could finish brewing, he felt a pain in his wrist. A burning sensation spread to the bottom of his heart. The pain made his face pale and he was so afraid that he didn't dare to resist at all. "Girl, quickly try it. This old fellow isn't very obedient and always wants to do some small tricks." After teaching fifth elder a small lesson, Song started to persuade Lung Ruoxue. Helpless, Lung Ruoxue could only bite the bullet and try out her beast-taming technique on fifth elder. After trying it out, she was surprised to find that it seemed to work. Chapter 2699. Inhuman, 2. It was too magical. Lung Ruoxue looked at Song in shock, not knowing what to say. When Song Yi saw Lung Ruoxue's expression and the fifth elder's sudden silence, he knew that he had succeeded. Song chuckled, feeling very proud. It had said that this old fellow could make up the numbers. As expected, he didn't let it down. "Girl, in the future, if our enemies are obedient, we won't kill them first. We'll use them to upgrade your beast-taming technique. How about it?" Azure suggested again. Lung Ruoxue nodded. She was just thinking about where to find so many beasts to tame. Now that she had enemies to make up the numbers, she could save a lot of trouble. Who asked her to have so many enemies? After the experiment was successful, she felt that Azure's suggestion was good. This way, she could upgrade her beast-taming technique. However, the conversation between the two of them made the Alliance Master and the others break out in cold sweat. Using the beast-taming technique on a human. It's so scary, isn't it? It was truly unfortunate to become Lung Ruoxue's enemy. It was one thing to be tamed, but to be tamed using a beast-taming technique, how much of a blow to one's self-esteem would that be? However, it seemed like he didn't need to care about the enemy's self-esteem. After all, enemies were meant to be abused. The Alliance Master and the others couldn't help but shiver at the thought of it. That was close. They had almost become Lung Ruoxue's enemies, but now, their relationship didn't seem to be that of friends. This would not do. After the internal conflict in the Ascender Alliance was resolved, he had to communicate with Lung Ruoxue properly and build up their relationship. The Alliance Master had made a decision in secret. After that, the Alliance Master said to Lung Ruoxue, "Miss Lung, well, go and deal with the internal strife first. What about you?" What he wanted to ask was whether Lung Ruoxue was going to follow them or if she had other plans. "I'm going to find someone from the Godlord's estate to get to know them and catch up," Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. For the Ascender Alliance, she only needed the fifth elder, who asked the fifth elder to lock her up in a cell. As for the others, she didn't care, but she didn't want to let anyone from the Divine Master's estate go. When the Alliance Master heard this, he immediately understood Lung Ruoxue's intentions and tactfully said, "Then we'll split into 2 groups and act separately. Yes, Little Five can lead the way for me. You guys go ahead and do your own things." Lung Ruoxue nodded in satisfaction. The little five that she was referring to was naturally the fifth elder. Xiaowu, who was called out, nodded her head foolishly. "I'll lead the way." Seeing this scene, the Alliance Master and the others couldn't help but twitch their lips. She was really obedient. After watching Leng Ruoxue and Song leave under Fifth Elder's guidance, the General Alliance Master led the group to find the other members of the Ascender Alliance. With the Fifth Elder leading the way, Leng Ruoxue and Song found the whereabouts of the people from the God Lord's estate without much effort. The Fifth Elder had arranged for them to stay in the best guest courtyard in the Ascender General Alliance. At this moment, those people were in a deep sleep. Leng Ruoxue and Song Du had arrived in front of them, but they still did not know. Their snores were loud, and they had no intention of waking up. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue didn't waste any words and immediately threw several large water balls at these people. In an instant, the ice-cold water balls woke everyone up. Thanks when everyone in the God Lord's manor woke up, they were still a little dazed. Then, they looked around and realized that they were sleeping on the ground in the courtyard. He wasn't the only one in the surroundings. Almost all of them had been gathered together. What was going on? Was he sleepwalking? It even rained? The crowd was puzzled and looked at each other in a daze. No one noticed Leng Ruoxue's presence. In reality, they were in the courtyard because Leng Ruoxue had instructed Fifth Elder to move them out of their rooms so that it would be more convenient for her to wake them up. She deliberately cleared her throat a few times and decided to increase her presence. At this time, everyone was shocked to realize that there were other people here besides them. Turning their heads to look at the source of the voice, everyone in the God Lord's estate turned pale and panicked. Their minds instantly sobered up. Why is Leng Ruoxue here? When did she arrive? Why are you here? The God Lord's estate's representative's face alternated between green and white as he asked in fear. Even though he dared to show off in front of the Fifth Elder, he did not even dare to speak loudly in front of Leng Ruoxue. Because this woman was too terrifying. I can't be here? What if I say that I'm only here because of you? Don't you feel honored? Leng Ruoxue was all smiles as she asked in an unusually gentle manner. However, when the representative of the God Lord's estate heard this, it was as if the end of the world had arrived. He had come here for them? Didn't that mean he was here to find trouble with them? Thinking of this, the God Lord's estate representative became even more afraid. He trembled and said, "Leng Ruoxue, we didn't offend you. Why are you here?" The representative of the God Lord's estate said carefully, but he wanted to cry in his heart. This fiend was not to be trifled with. Didn't you want to subdue the Ascender Alliance? You've already offended me. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. The Ascender Alliance has nothing to do with you. The God Lord's estate is well aware of this. After calming himself down, the representative of the God Lord's estate could not help but remind him. In other words, he was telling him not to meddle in other people's business. They have nothing to do with me. However, after you have subdued the Ascender Alliance, they have a relationship with me, don't you think so? Leng Ruoxue's smile was extremely charming. However, this smile was terrifying in the hearts of the Divine Master's estate representatives. However, the representative of the God Lord's manor still pretended to be confused and said, I don't understand what you mean. You don't understand? Do you need me to make myself clear? Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and asked in a dangerous tone. No need. The God Lord's estate's representative immediately said, Since I don't need to say it, let's solve the problem between us now. Are you going to surrender or do you want me to do it? Leng Ruoxue acknowledged her kindness, so she gave them two choices. Of course, personally speaking, she still hoped that these people would surrender on their own. That way, she would be able to save herself a lot of trouble. However, it was obvious that the representative of the Divine Master's estate did not have such a high level of awareness. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, he continued to smile shamelessly. Leng Ruoxue, let's talk this out. Why are you fighting and killing? If we don't fight, how can we solve the problem? Leng Ruoxue deliberately sighed and put on a helpless expression. Can we leave this place immediately? The God Lord Manor's representative didn't want to go head-to-head with Lung Ruoxue. This woman wasn't even afraid of the God Lord, so how could he be a match for her? Of course not. I didn't ask you to leave, so how can you leave? Lung Ruoxue chuckled lightly. Either die, stay, or surrender. Live and stay your choice. Azure added. Both paths had to be left behind, but the methods were different. Unfortunately, he didn't want to choose any of the representatives of the God Lord's estate. He didn't want to die, and he didn't want to stay either, because he knew that neither result would be good. Chapter 2700. Am a Human. 3. After thinking for a long time, the representative of the God Lord's estate finally made up his mind and said fiercely, Lung Ruoxue, don't think that I'm afraid of you just because I'm giving you face. You're alone, right? There are so many of us here. Do you think you can keep us here? You can try. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. When the other party saw that Lung Ruoxue did not deny that she was the only one on their side, he felt at ease. He even held his head high and laughed out loud. Lung Ruoxue, you're alone and you still dare to boast so shamelessly? I really don't know where you get your confidence from. When the others heard this, they also laughed wildly in cooperation. Who said that it's only for Miss Lung? At this moment, an angry roar was heard. Then, the second and fifth masters appeared in the guest house with their subordinates. Following closely behind them were the Alliance Master and the others, who had quickly dealt with the traitors and rushed over to make up the numbers. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue's side had suddenly gained many reinforcements, the God Lord Manor's representative was not afraid. Instead, he looked at the Alliance Master and Li Jing with even more disdain and laughed. Even a defeated opponent dares to come and court death. Damn it! If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been captured. The Alliance Master immediately roared in anger. All is fair in war, haven't you heard of it? Who told you to be so careless? The God Lord's estate's representative said shamelessly. That's reasonable, all's fair in war. Lung Ruoxue agreed. Hearing this, the representative of the God Lord's estate became more and more proud. He couldn't help but show off to the Alliance Master and the others. Even Lung Ruoxue feels that you guys are too useless. Miss Lung, can you let me deal with this person? The Alliance Master ignored the representative from the God Lord's estate and spoke to Lung Ruoxue instead. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded. She knew that the Alliance Master wanted to take revenge, so she couldn't stop him. She simply took a step back and watched the show from the side. Then, the Alliance Master took a big step forward and stood face to face with the representative of the God Lord's estate. As soon as the two of them met, the chief immediately attacked. Countless light blue water attribute divine power was released from his hand, which instantly turned into sharp water blades that shot toward the God Lord estate representatives. The God Lord's estate's representative couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "You've actually recovered your divine power." However, he didn't panic. He also raised his hand and threw a small handful of colorless and transparent powder into the air. This time, the Alliance Master was mentally prepared. The moment the other party moved, he quickly covered his mouth and nose. Seeing this, the representative of the God Lord's estate snorted and said, "You think you'll be fine if you cover your nose and mouth?" Hearing this, the Alliance Master's eyes widened. What did this mean? He didn't need to think about it himself. The representative of the God Lord's manor then asked, "I'm telling you, it's useless. You're dead today. Is that so?" Just as the Alliance Master was bewildered, Azure asked with a faint smile. Of course. The God Lord's estate's representative thought that it was the Alliance Master who had said this, so he replied with great pride. However, he soon realized that the one who interrupted him was the little kitten that he had ignored all this time. "I don't believe it," Azure said as if the other party was a big liar. "Damned animal. You shut up, you have no right to speak here." The God Lord's estate's representative turned to shout at Song Ho. He had wanted to scold the silly cat when it interrupted him earlier, but he didn't have the time to do so. Now that he had the opportunity, how could he not retaliate? Wouldn't he be looked down upon by a cat? Who knew that as soon as he said this, Azure's body immediately emitted an endless cold pressure and roared, "You bastard! You're the animal! Your whole family is a bunch of animals." Azure didn't feel that it could vent its anger just by roaring. After it finished scolding, it quickly jumped out of Lung Ruox's arms and dashed towards the representative of the Divine Master's estate at lightning speed. Everyone could only see a white beam of light dancing in the air, followed by tragic screams, each more tragic than the last. A moment later, the white beam of light returned to Lung Ruox's arms, returning to its image of an obedient little kitten. At the same time, the representative from the House of Gods was covered in claw marks. Blood was dripping down from his wounds, and his clothes were like torn cloth, hanging on his body on the verge of collapse. He only stood in front of everyone for a few seconds before he fell to the ground and passed out. Tragic! How tragic! Thanks, the onlookers only felt their scalps go numb and fear rose in their hearts. This little cat was really too ruthless. It had not even been a minute, and he had already scratched him to this extent. How much hatred did he have for her? The Ascender Alliance couldn't imagine it, but at the same time, they were glad that they weren't its enemy. Otherwise, they might have been the ones lying on the ground. However, the people from the Godlord's manor could not be as calm as them. Seeing that the person in charge was unconscious and his life or death was unknown, they were all afraid without a leader. All of them looked at a loss. What should they do? Should they resist or surrender? This was the only thought on the side of the Divine Lord's estate. Do you want to die? Seeing that they were wavering, Azure's eyes widened and he shouted, "No, I don't want to die." Some people couldn't take the shock and knelt down to beg for mercy. Surrender if you don't want to die. It'll only give you 1 minute to decide. After 1 minute, those who don't surrender will all die. Song threatened. This time, the people from the Godlord's estate were completely flustered. The less courageous ones felt their legs go soft, and the hesitant ones surrendered under Tsong's intimidating gaze. Such a scene caused the Ascender Alliance to sigh endlessly. This was the difference in strength. Although the kitten had only shown a little bit of strength, it was enough to make people feel fear. Just like that, with Tsong's help, Lung Ruoxue took care of the people from the Divine Master's residence without even making a move. Although she had thought of making these people surrender, she felt that she had no sense of accomplishment if they really surrendered. This contradictory mood made her quite conflicted. "Girl, you don't need to do anything to those small fries. I'll give them to you when there's a big shark. Calm down, there'll be a chance." A big shark? After Lung Ruoxue heard this consolation, she was speechless. She couldn't help but wonder if the big shark that Tsong was referring to was the fog phoenix. The fish was a little big, and she couldn't catch it yet. In fact, other than Lung Ruoxue, who was feeling a little depressed, the Ascender Alliance's Alliance Master was also feeling depressed. This was because the Divine Master's estate's representative had originally been given to him by Lung Ruoxue, but it had been snatched away by Tsong. Moreover, Tsong had not even been there for a minute and had directly knocked a certain representative unconscious. This was extremely embarrassing for a dignified supreme god like him. However, since things had come to this, he could only do this. After that, the Alliance Master quickly adjusted his state of mind and kindly told Lung Ruoxue and Tsong that he would be preparing a grand celebration party later and invited them to join. The man and the cat both smiled without saying a word. The Alliance Master thought that they had agreed. However, when they were ready to invite the person, the Ascender Alliance suddenly realized that the person had quietly slipped away. Before he left, he only left behind a letter, which read to the Alliance Master. After opening the letter, the Alliance Master's face was like a color palette: white, red, green, green, and black. His expression was changing unpredictably, and his expression was particularly conflicted. Li Jing and the other elders did not understand what was going on, but when they took the letter and read it, they were all at a loss. There was only one sentence written in the letter: "Please prepare the reward and send it to Demon City. The deadline is 1 month. If you are late, you will be charged a late payment fee." There were a few small categories, such as the cost of alchemy and saving people. Although the Alliance Master and the rest did not understand what she meant by delayed payment of gold, they knew that it was definitely not something good. Hence, without further ado, the Ascender Alliance, from the Alliance Master to the Elders and Sub-Alliance Masters, all took action quickly to raise funds for Lung Ruoxue. It was a good thing that the Ascender Alliance was a big organization and Lung Ruoxue did not ask for too much. Hence, the reward was prepared very quickly. The Alliance Master and Li Jing followed their original plan and decided to head to the Land of Demons personally. A week later, the Alliance Master and Li Jing finally arrived at the Land of Demons. However, when they arrived at the Devil's Land, the two of them found out that Lung Ruoxue and the little kitten had not returned at all. This result stunned the two of them. Uncle Long and the others also asked in confusion, since the matter of the Ascender Alliance has been resolved, why didn't Schwer come back with you? She didn't say where she went? She only left a letter and left without saying goodbye. The Alliance Master said the truth, but he couldn't help but think, your people, you ask me, but who should I ask? Damn it, where did this girl go? It's really worrying. When Master Ning heard that Schwer's whereabouts were unknown, he immediately became angry. However, when the Alliance Master heard this, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart, worried? They shouldn't be worried about Lung Ruoxue, but the people she might cause trouble for, right? However, of course, he didn't dare to say this out loud. After all, he was in someone else's territory. How could he say bad things about his master? Furthermore, they were indebted to Lung Ruoxue. Therefore, when he heard Master Ning's words, he could only pretend to be invisible and refuse to express his opinion. The master of the Ning family only said that he was worried, but he was actually complaining in his heart. Because Schwer didn't say anything to them, they were letting their thoughts run wild at home. That detestable girl. She had to teach her a lesson when she came back. Let her go missing for no reason. Why didn't you think of your godfather when there was something fun? What a heartless little girl. Master Ning was grumbling in his heart, but Lung Ruoxue, who was thousands of miles away, was sneezing nonstop. She knew that her family was nagging at her, but she had no choice. She had been completely kidnapped by Tsang. Chapter 2701. So what if you have more hands? 1. Where was she now? Lung Ruoxue's eyes went dark. She had no idea where she was at all. There were only mountains in front of her, and the sky was dark and chaotic. Moreover, if she remembered correctly, there was no such thing on the map. Tsang, what is this place? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask as she looked at Tsang's calm and composed appearance. Tsang teleported with her for a few days before finally arriving here. However, it was as if nothing had happened here, constantly commanding her to wander around the mountains like a headless fly. Lung Ruoxue was a little confused about Tsang's intentions. This place. I'm not telling you yet. Tsang laughed evilly. He then saw Lung Ruoxue's depressed expression and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Lung Ruoxue was indeed very depressed. This little thing was actually keeping her in suspense. Girl, I'm hungry, let's eat something first. Tsang said after laughing for a while. All right then. Lung Ruoxue was extremely helpless. She could only resign herself to her fate and take out some ingredients to prepare something to eat so that she could feed this little fellow that was driving her crazy. A moment later, Lung Ruoxue nimbly prepared some fragrant food. Tsang didn't say anything and started eating by Lung Ruoxue's feet. Seeing that Tsang's appetite was so good, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but wonder if this little fellow was here for an outing? Just as Lung Ruoxue was thinking about this, she suddenly heard a rustling sound. Instantly, she raised her guard. Following that, a huge black shadow pounced towards the man and the beast. Lung Ruoxue immediately picked up Tsang and quickly dodged to an empty space at the side. When the huge black shadow saw that it had missed, it furiously pounced towards Lung Ruoxue and Tsang. It was only then that Lung Ruoxue could see the true face of the black shadow. It was a giant centipede that was at least 1,000 meters long. The centipede's entire body was as black as armor, and there was a light blue glow on it. Its broad body was as big as a small mountain. She had heard that centipedes had 100 or 1,000 legs, But from what Lung Ruoxue could see, this centipede probably had 10,000 legs. The centipede's head was even bigger than her body, especially the two millstone-like eyes on the centipede's head. They were eerie and terrifying. At this moment, they were exuding a frighteningly cold air. Just looking at them would make one feel fear. Its mouth was full of huge teeth, and they were making cracking sounds. As for this centipede's strength, it was roughly between the 8th and 9th rank. However, based on its size and its ferocity, it could definitely be compared to a true 9th rank sacred beast. As for Lung Ruoxue, she didn't dare to let her guard down when facing this disgusting centipede. After dodging the centipede's violent attacks twice, she had completely angered the centipede. "Human! Cunning humans! I won't let you off!" The centipede opened its mouth in anger. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. How was she cunning? He only dodged twice and didn't let the centipede catch him. How could this be considered cunning? Could it be that when she saw this centipede, she could only stand still and let it do whatever it wanted? That wasn't not cunning, but stupid, right? She had to admit that she was very worried about the centipede's intelligence. "Very well, I won't let you off either." After that, Lung Ruoxue replied, unwilling to be outdone. Even though she was not as big as her opponent's head, she would never admit defeat in terms of aura. Otherwise, the centipede would probably laugh at her even more. She was also a little curious about where this centipede came from. "Humans! You're so bold." The centipede was obviously mad with anger. It waved its countless legs and bared its fangs and claws in front of Lung Ruoxue. Thanks, Lung Ruoxue was very depressed as she thought, "So what if you have more hands?" Taking out Cold Shadow, Lung Ruoxue flicked her wrist and drew out several beautiful and dazzling sword rays in the air. Centipede blinked his eyes in confusion and asked, "Human, what do you want to do?" "I'm going to cut off your feet, damn it. You think you're so great with more hands?" Lung Ruoxue roared. As she was speaking, the centipede's claws were still moving non-stop, as if it was going to pounce on her. She was furious. After listening to her, the centipede didn't get angry at all. Instead, it nodded in agreement. "It's quite amazing to have more hands." Lung Ruoxue was truly helpless. This centipede was a narcissistic fellow. Since that's the case, then don't blame her. She didn't have a good impression of centipedes anyway. Besides, the centipede wanted to kill her. Actions speak louder than words. While Lung Ruoxue was thinking this, the cold shadow in her hand had already sent a few cold glints towards the centipede's claws. With a bang, the sword glints struck a few of the centipede's huge legs, creating intense sparks. However, the cold shadow's sword glints only left a few faint white marks on the centipede's huge legs. Other than that, it did not cause much damage to the centipede. Lung Ruoxue was astonished. This centipede's shell was so hard. Centipede sneered, "Puny human, you dare to be my enemy? You're really tired of living. Today, I'll let you taste the power of my 1,000 feet." As soon as it finished speaking, the centipede's huge and hard tail swept towards Lung Ruoxue. As Lung Ruoxue dodged, she could not help but remind him, "Is this your foot? This is a tail, right? You bastard! Did the main body not recognize tails? I'll let you have a taste of my tail first before using it to its full extent, all right?" The corrected centipede was very angry. Its black hard shell seemed to be shining with a faint fiery red. It was obvious that it was very angry. "Yes, you can. However, I'm afraid that you won't have the chance to use it fully later." After Lung Ruoxue finished her sentence, she quickly infused her fire-type divine power into the cold shadow. In an instant, a few sharp sword gleams flew out again. The centipede was huge and had no time to dodge. It was extremely confident in its own strength, so it didn't think of dodging either. Therefore, it allowed the sword rays to hit its body and feet. But this time, it had completely miscalculated. The fiery red sword light hit its body and feet, and it was so painful that it wanted to roll on the ground. That heart-piercing pain almost took half of its life. How did this happen? Centipede couldn't believe his eyes. The other party's sword ray had also hit his body before, but nothing had happened to him, right? Why was it different this time? Not only was it different, but this time, the other party's sword radiance had also cut off a few of its giant legs. And the pain of the giant foot leaving its body was something it never wanted to experience again in its life. It was too painful. It was too painful. Tears welled up in the centipede's large eyes. What kind of trick did this woman use? How could he be so powerful? This woman who was holding a small pet was clearly weaker than it. Chapter 2702. So what if you have more hands, too? The centipede couldn't figure it out. Its heart was bleeding when it saw the giant foot lying on the ground. What are you doing? Then, the centipede saw the woman in front of it pick up the few giant legs that had left it. It could not help but ask carefully, why did it feel that something was going to fall on its head? I heard that the centipede is a medicinal ingredient, so of course I can't waste it. I'm going to keep your leg for alchemy. Lung Ruoxue answered the centipede's question with a smile. Her pair of beautiful eyes kept on sizing up the centipede's sturdy and hard black shell. At once, the centipede was infuriated by Lung Ruoxue's words and the way she was sizing it up. It immediately roared, "Human! How dare you? Do you know who I am?" "I know, you're a centipede." Lung Ruoxue nodded. "Ignorant human. I'm telling you, I'm not just a centipede, I'm also the chief of the entire centipede race in the divine world. At the same time, I'm also a trusted aide of God Lord Fog Ripple. So if you're smart, you'd better leave behind my foot and quickly leave. Otherwise, you'll only die here." In a fit of rage, the centipede revealed its trump card. Initially, he thought that after it revealed his background, Lung Ruoxue would be so frightened that she would immediately run away. Who knew that not only did she not leave after hearing his words, she even appeared to be in deep thought. This made the centipede clan leader extremely puzzled. As expected of Wu Cheng's subordinate, I cut off a few of his legs, but not only did he not want to take revenge, he even wanted to let me go. Lung Ruoxue laughed indifferently. In other words, she was saying, "Little centipede, you're so cowardly. It's good that you know. As subordinates of God Lord Mist Ripple, how could we stoop to the level of puny humans? So, this lord will be magnanimous and not haggle with you. If you know what's good for you, then quickly leave. Don't force me to do it." The centipede clan leader did not catch the hidden meaning behind Lung Ruoxue's words. Instead, he spoke with pride. It was honored to be a subordinate of God Lord Mist Ripple. But in reality, it had thought of taking revenge after Lung Ruoxue had chopped off a few of its legs. It was just that it had some instinctive fear of Lung Ruoxue's fire attribute divine power. Thus, it would rather suffer a little than to be entangled with this human. However, how could Lung Ruoxue be dismissed so easily? Especially after hearing that the other party was a trusted aide of Ripple, she would not leave so easily. People from Rime Ice. How could he let her go? After some thought, Lung Ruoxue continued to smile. "If you want me to leave, I'll leave. Just take the initiative and offer me your body. This shell of yours should be pretty good for forging. Despicable human. How dare you try to steal my outer shell? You must be tired of living." After the centipede heard this, it was furious again. It really felt that the woman in front of it really didn't know what was good for her. It didn't even want to argue with her, but why was she still so insensible? Little did it know that Lung Ruoxue had only made up her mind to pester it endlessly after hearing it call itself a subordinate of the Ripple Mist. Therefore, the moment it revealed its identity, its fate was already decided. "You'll know if I'm tired of living after you try. Come on. Let's continue, Chief Centipede." Lung Ruoxue beckoned at the centipede, whose body was on fire from anger. Then she flashed out the cold shadow in her hand, signaling for the other party to quickly make a move. However, the centipede clan leader did not act rashly. He looked at the calm Lung Ruoxue, then glanced at the sword in her hand that was emitting a cold aura. Suddenly, he turned around and retreated decisively. As he left, the centipede clan leader thought to himself, "I don't want to waste my time with this lunatic." It was such a waste of time. Lung Ruoxue was dumbfounded when she saw this. Thanks while she was still in a daze, the the swift centipede clan leader had already disappeared into the gray fog, without a trace. Lung Ruoxue was extremely depressed. What a mistake! She had never expected that the giant centipede would escape. What should he do now? The other party was Wu Yan's subordinate, and he was really unwilling to let her go just like that. Wait a minute. Why would Wu Yan's subordinates be here? Could it be that it also knew that he was somewhat unsightly, so it hid here? As such, it seemed that she could not let the centipede go. With such a powerful beastie, it would definitely be a big problem to keep it. Song, we have to find that centipede and destroy it. After thinking for a while, Lung Ruoxue spoke to Tsang Dao very seriously. And that guy's entire body is a treasure. Not only can it be used to refine pills, it can also be used to refine weapons. It's indeed a rare material. Azure nodded in agreement. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. That was not what she meant. She just wanted to weaken the fog, but she couldn't deny that Song's words were true. That centipede was a treasure. Song, let's go find that centipede. Lung Ruoxue couldn't be bothered to argue with Song and directly said, "Girl, don't be anxious. Wait for another 2 or 3 days and we'll meet it again." Song had a look of confidence as he said mysteriously, "What?" Lung Ruoxue was puzzled. What did this mean? Aren't you curious as to why that centipede is here? Azure asked with a faint smile. Why? Lung Ruoxue was very cooperative. Since Song had said so, it shouldn't be the childish reason she thought of before. There's a precious herb here, and that centipede was ordered to guard it. Originally, this centipede was the guardian beast of that medicinal herb, but it was later subdued by that bitch, Wu Han, so it became Wu Han's slave. This time, Azure didn't keep him in suspense and explained. Lung Ruoxue's interest was piqued the moment she heard the word precious. She asked, "Is that medicinal herb the reason you brought me here?" "Yes, that medicinal herb is very important to the Rime Ice. Therefore we must get it." Azure clenched his furry little fist and said fiercely, "In that case, should we call Uncle Long and the others over? There's strength in numbers." Lung Ruoxue suggested. However, Azure shook his head. "There's no need to call them over. The 2 of us are enough." "Are you sure? What if Wu Xian comes here?" Lung Ruoxue asked worriedly. Even though the fog ripple had been injured, she didn't know how much better the woman's injuries had gotten. She didn't dare to let her guard down. "I'll deal with her when she comes, but I don't think she'll come here. This place is considered one of her secret bases. It's not even marked on the map of the Divine Realm, so she definitely won't expect us to come here. More importantly, the guards here are all idiots who rarely move around in the Divine Realm. They have never seen us before, so they naturally don't know about the enmity between us and Fog Ice, so don't worry. We'll definitely be able to get those herbs." Azure was full of confidence. This was also the reason why it didn't allow Lung Ruoxue to call Uncle Long and the others over. In the land of evil demons, there were countless pairs of eyes watching them. If the spies of Fog Ice discovered the actions of Uncle Long and the others, it would definitely alarm Fog Ice, and it would make it difficult for them to snatch that medicinal herb. Chapter 2703. So what if you have more hands? 3. But we've already been discovered by the centipede. Is that okay? Lung Ruoxue was still a little worried. That centipede is an idiot. It was so scared by you that it hid in the hole. Before the herb ripened, it would definitely not dare to leave, so don't worry. It doesn't have the intention to tattle. We just need to stay here in peace. It won't think that our goal is that medicinal herb. At most, they'll think that we've mistakenly entered this nameless mountain." Song laughed evilly. Before coming, he already knew the situation here like the back of his hand. However, he deliberately maintained a sense of mystery and didn't tell Nyo anything. Now that he thought about it, his decision was indeed right. When it saw Nyo's blank face, its mood was particularly good. Fortunately, Lung Ruoxue wasn't aware of its little evil interest. Otherwise, she would have vomited blood from depression. Hearing Song's words, Lung Ruoxue could only let go of her worries and stay where she was. However, she was still very curious about the medicinal herb and finally couldn't help but ask, Song, what is the herb that you said is very important to the rhyme ice? What's the use of it? That herb is called the blood lotus flower. There's only one of it in the world. At that time, the seed of the blood lotus flower was also contaminated with a trace of chaos chi. It can be considered a plant born from chaos and has some relatives with the fog. So, after the fog found it and subdued the centipede, the fog has ordered the centipede to guard it for tens of thousands of years. The moment the blood lotus flower matures, the fog will absorb the essence of the blood lotus flower. At that time, the cultivation of the fog will definitely take a big step forward. She might even become the true master of the divine realm. At that time, it would be even more difficult for us to deal with her. But fortunately, she was injured by the demonic man before, so even if she has absorbed the essence of the blood lotus flower, she can't completely use up her strength. However, with the essence of the blood lotus flower that has been around for tens of thousands of years, it will be easy for her to heal Wu Lian's injuries. So, no matter what, we can't let the blood lotus flower fall into the hands of Wu Lian. Azure said very seriously. After Leng Ruoxue heard these words, she nodded. She had never seen Song show such a serious expression, so she naturally paid more attention to it. But she still had some questions. Azure, how did you discover the existence of the blood lotus flower? Leng Ruoxue was very curious. I've known about it for a long time and have been paying attention to it. However, the blood lotus flower grows extremely slowly. It's been tens of thousands of years. Any other natural treasure would have been able to take form long ago, but that little flower hasn't developed any spiritual consciousness yet. It still recognizes me, Azure said with a bitter expression. It's been a long time indeed. In that case, you've been eyeing the blood lotus flower for a long time. Leng Ruoxue listened to Tsong's complaints and couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. Between this beast and flower, there was clearly, girl, how can you say that? We can't let it fall into the hands of fog. I hate that woman. My greatest pleasure is to make trouble for her and make things difficult for her. So, we must get the blood lotus. Azure reminded him seriously. Yes, just because that flower is what Wu wants, I can't give it to her. However, what kind of flower was the blood lotus flower? And what does it have to do with Shuel Yen? Leng Ruoxue could not help but ask. It doesn't matter. They just look a little similar. However, snow lotuses are basically white, while blood lotus flowers are as red as blood. They are very bright. Song explained. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head, understanding the situation. So the flower will mature in 2 or 3 days? She continued. After it matures, it will be able to develop intelligence. I'm really looking forward to what it will be like. Azure said happily. Looking at its appearance, Leng Ruoxue was even more certain that there was something going on between Song and that flower. Afraid that Song would find out, Leng Ruoxue quickly put away her improper thoughts and smiled. Congratulations, you finally have the chance to meet. Girl, you'll see it too. Azure reminded. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded, but she couldn't help but think to herself, I'm not looking forward to it as much as you. I just don't want that flower to be obtained by Wu Xiao. Just like that, the two of them began to wait patiently. However, on the second day, the blood lotus flower that Song had been waiting for did not mature. On the third day, from the morning, Leng Ruoxue could clearly feel the increase in the spiritual energy in the mountain. Furthermore, there was an uncountable amount of spiritual energy swarming towards their location. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and Song knew that this was a sign that the blood lotus flower was maturing. Without waiting for Leng Ruoxue to open her mouth, Song teleported Leng Ruoxue to a dark cave. The cave was so dark that he couldn't even see his fingers. Leng Ruoxue wanted to light up a small flame but was stopped by Song. Girl, don't light a fire, Song Huan transmitted. You'll scare the blood lotus flower. That little fellow is very timid. Hearing Song's words, Leng Ruoxue could only give up and silently endure the darkness in front of her. Actually, she really didn't like such a dark place, especially when there were a few other slightly unfamiliar auras besides them here. This made Leng Ruoxue even more disgusted. Needless to say, those unfamiliar auras must have been sent by the mist to guard the blood lotus flower. Thanks. Just as Lung Ruoxue was feeling depressed that she did not know when the blood lotus flower would truly mature, suddenly, a small spot of light lit up not too far away from her. It was like a firefly emitting a faint light. Slowly, the light expanded bit by bit. However, the speed at which the light expanded was really too slow. By the time the light was the size of a baby's fist, an hour had passed. However, the spiritual energy in the cave had obviously increased. Lung Ruoxue's sharp senses could also sense that the violent spiritual energy was swarming towards the light from all directions. The few auras in the cave all held their breaths, not daring to disturb the blood lotus flower's maturity. After an unknown period of time, the spirit chi that had almost turned into liquid finally stopped being violent and slowly stabilized. The fresh air in the cave also made Lung Ruoxue feel much more comfortable. In an instant, the pitch-black cave suddenly became as bright as day. Lung Ruoxue could finally see the true appearance of the blood lotus flower in Song's mouth. It was a red flower the size of an adult's palm. It was indeed very similar to a snow lotus. Its color was very bright, and the bright red petals were like drops of blood. They were crystal clear and beautiful. A faint layer of flowing light covered the petals, making the blood lotus flower appear even more noble. The tiny flower was like a king that no one dared to look at directly. However, at the same time that she saw the blood lotus flower, Lung Ruoxue also saw the three ugly beastie in front of them. In addition to the huge centipede, there was also a spider that was as tall as a building, and a giant black ant with a golden crown on its head. Needless to say, these three guys were definitely chiefs, kings, or something of the sort. Seeing them, Lung Ruoxue wanted to curse, but her good upbringing forced her to hold it in. She looked at the three ugly creatures in front of her with a face full of vigilance. In an instant, 4 figures flew towards the blood lotus flower. One of the white figures, which was as fast as lightning, was naturally azure, while the other 3 were the 3 ugly beasts. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she was prepared to lend Song a hand to block the 3 beasts. Who knew that before she could even make a move, the heart of the tiny blood lotus spat out a red mist. Almost instantly, the 3 ugly beasts took a big step back at the same time. Song took the opportunity to keep the blood lotus in his arms. Looking at Song's careful manner, as if he was holding a rare treasure, Lung Ruoxue was even more certain that there was an extraordinary friendship between them. However, this was obviously not the time for gossip. There were still 3 very ugly beastie eyeing them covetously. However, what surprised Lung Ruoxue was that after the blood lotus flower was obtained by Tsang, not only did the 3 ugly beasts not immediately rush forward to snatch it, they even looked as if they had suffered a huge blow. Especially the centipede clan leader, his face had completely crumbled and tears were rolling down his face. Following that, he heard the centipede clan leader choked with sobs. "Little blood, how can you treat me like this? I've been protecting you for tens of thousands of years." As soon as he said this, the other 2 also burst into tears, as if they had been wronged and joined in. "Little blood, you don't want us anymore? In what way can we not compare to that damn cat?" After saying that, the other 2 were still burning with jealousy and glared at Song fiercely. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue looked at the complicated relationship in front of her. She could not help but imagine, could this be the so-called "my lover is married, but am not the groom"? No, it should be the lover that he had protected for tens of thousands of years, but the moment he woke up one day, he fell in love with someone else. It was obvious that the guardian would be very sad. As for Tsang, who was on the other side, he was obviously domineering. He fought 1 against 3, using his small body to fight against 3 huge monsters. Lung Ruoxue's mind was filled with wild thoughts. Just then, she heard an extremely childish voice ring out by her ear. "So what if you have protected me for tens of thousands of years? You still want me to die, don't you?" The childish voice sounded very angry. "You guys can't compare to Azure in any way." He added, "Look at how smart this little guy is." Although it had just gained sentience, it was clear that these 3 ugly fellows were not as good as Tsang, who was obviously more interested in it. Lung Ruoxue supported the idea of the tiny blood lotus flower, and he quickly expressed it with his actions. She clapped. Little guy, you've made a wise choice. These three monsters didn't have good intentions. They were monsters who specialized in deceiving children. Fortunately, you didn't fall for it. Lung Ruoxue praised as she wished for the world to be in chaos. Thank you, but I'm not a little guy. You are. The blood lotus flower corrected Lung Ruoxue's words in a serious manner. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue felt depressed for a moment. Alright. She understood what the other party meant. She quickly decided not to argue with a plant that had lived for tens of thousands of years because she would lose miserably. Chapter 2704. Don't Stop Me. 1. Lung Ruoxue was smart enough to maintain her silence. However, the other three ugly fellows were unwilling to be left out. They were unwilling to be ignored. More importantly, the blood lotus flower's words had caused them to be heartbroken. The giant centipede had a look of betrayal on its face as it said, "Little blood, how can you say that we are sending you to your death? We're all doing this for your own good. You're sending me to my death for my own good?" Little blood said angrily. Its tender voice was so angry that it was a little sharp. This can't be considered suicide, right? It's just to maximize your role as a plant. And think about it, if you can become a part of the Master God, how great of an honor would that be for you? The giant centipede tried to persuade the angry red flower. However, the flower became angrier and angrier when it heard this. It was so angry that it was trembling. Then, everyone heard a red flower that had just gained sentience curse. Bullshit. Who would want to be a part of that bitch? Whose grandfather had said that sending one to death was the greatest use of plants? Then why don't you just go and die? Why don't you just go and die? Not only can your body be used to refine pills, but it can also be used to refine weapons, so it's much more useful than me. Why don't you take the initiative to offer yourself and let others kill you? The blood lotus flower was furious, and the consequences were severe. Moreover, with its anger, the red mist that spurted out from the center of the flower became even more intense. The three beastie, led by the centipede, hurriedly took a few large steps back in fear. Azure held the blood lotus flower with an indifferent expression and looked at the three with a faint smile. Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines. She couldn't understand how a little guy who had just gained sentience could learn to curse. Could it be self-taught? The possibility of this should be very low, right? Moreover, that person didn't admit that she was the little guy's flower and even called Wu Chen a bish. This was most likely the Tsang sect. It had to be said that Lung Ruoxue was right. These words were really from the Azure sect. Although Azure rarely appeared by the blood lotus flower's side, he could still communicate with little flowers spiritually. Over time, the pure blood lotus was instilled by Tsang into the fog that it was a bad guy. It was a slut. It was the idea of Grandmother Wolf, who wanted to eat it, and it was deeply ingrained in the blood lotus flower's heart. As for the three beasts who had been ordered to protect the blood lotus flower, Azure had also spoken ill of them. Because of this, even if Azure didn't appear often, Flowery didn't really care about those three. Moreover, it did not have any intelligence, so even if they wanted to communicate, there was no way. The three beasts definitely did not have Azure's ability to communicate with the blood lotus flower that had no intelligence. As such, the three of them were naturally in a tragedy. Xiaohua only treated them as servants. At least with someone to protect them, it didn't have to worry too much about its safety. More importantly, it was very clear that as long as it was not mature, the ripple which would not be willing to eat it. That was why it had been living a carefree life for the past tens of thousands of years. Now that it had matured, it meant that danger was coming. It was time for the two sides to fall out. Now that it had the protection of the thick-skinned Azure, it naturally didn't need to fear these three guys. It had to be said that Azure's upbringing had been very successful, and the blood lotus flower was very dependent on it. The closeness between the beast and the flower had greatly provoked the three ugly beasts, who were burning with jealousy. Seeing how the other party treated Tsang as a love rival, Lung Ruoxue was both amused and speechless. However, she knew that the little flower was not to be trifled with. The red mist that came out of the flower's pistil was poisonous. Although she didn't know what would happen if she came into contact with it, but looking at the three of them fearful expressions, the poison was probably not light. Lung Ruoxue was secretly making guesses at the side. The three beastie, who had lost their rationality and flown into a rage out of humiliation, were conversing privately through voice transmission. They would even cast their gazes towards Lung Ruoxue from time to time, causing her to be baffled. Why were the three of them looking at it? Just as Lung Ruoxue was feeling puzzled, she heard Qingju's chuckling in her heart. She could not help but wipe the sweat off her forehead. Before she could ask, Qingju's voice was heard. "Thanks, big sister, they're trying to get their hands on you." What? Lung Ruoxue didn't understand. Even though they were enemies, shouldn't they be dealing with their love rival now? Why did he have any ideas about her? However, before Lung Ruoxue could ask, she saw three huge black shadows pouncing towards her from the corner of her eye. She dodged nimbly and jumped to a safe place at the side, causing the three to miss. The three beasties' anger burned even more when they saw that they had failed. The Centipede clan leader was so furious that he spat out a black poison at Lung Ruoxue. At the same time, the giant spider spat out countless light yellow, web-like threads from its mouth, which were scattered towards Lung Ruoxue. The big black ant waved its two huge pincers and pounced towards Lung Ruoxue once again. The attacks that these three beasts used were all their most powerful attacks. They had made up their minds to teach Lung Ruoxue a lesson, so all three of them were going all out. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she was so angry that she wanted to curse the heavens. Damn it! This was bullying. She wasn't the one snatching his love away, so why was he trying to force himself on her? If you have the ability, go find a group of people and beat them up. This bunch of bastards who bully the weak and fear the strong. Lung Ruoxue was enraged. She immediately threw out a small flame. The small flame split into three in the air and flew towards the three beasts from different directions. As soon as the Centipede clan leader saw the flame, he was instinctively afraid and slowed down his pace. However, the other two did not know the truth. They continued to shoot out their pincers. The one that was waving its pincers increased its strength, determined to take Lung Ruoxue down. According to their thoughts, the woman in front of them was the owner of that hateful cat. As long as they killed this woman, that cat would not be a threat. He would deal with the cat after he killed this woman. It had to be said that Beastie also knew how to capture the king before capturing the bandits. Unfortunately, the weak woman in their eyes was not what she looked like. Therefore, the three Beastie who had this thought were destined to miscalculate. The first to suffer were the two spiders and ants who did not know the truth and thought that Lung Ruoxue was easy to bully. Just as they were about to continue attacking Lung Ruoxue, the small flame Lung Ruoxue had released landed lightly on their backs. Without giving them any chance to react, the small flame turned into a huge fire with a swoosh. The raging flames rose to a height of 3 feet and directly surrounded the two gigantic beasts. At the same time, a painful wail came from the fire. The wail grew louder, then gradually faded away, and finally disappeared little by little. Seeing this, the Centipede clan leader was so scared that his legs went weak. He wanted to run, but he could only look at Lung Ruoxue with a trembling face. His body, which was thousands of meters long, was so scared that he was paralyzed. It was completely dumbfounded. How did this happen? How did this happen? Chapter 2705. Don't Stop Me, 2. What kind of flame was that? How could it be so powerful? Its two little companions didn't even resist, and they went silent. Was he dead? The Centipede clan leader didn't dare to think any further, but its huge body that was trembling violently revealed the boundless fear in its heart. It had long known that the flame was not simple, but it did not expect it to be more powerful than it had imagined. At the thought of this, it suddenly realized that the woman had not killed it because she had been merciful. How did this happen? The Centipede clan leader asked himself for the umpteenth time. That woman clearly looked so weak, so how could she have such a powerful flame? This didn't make sense. The Centipede clan leader really wanted to roar into the sky. But at this time, what it regretted even more was that it had treated this woman as a soft persimmon. Now, not only was the persimmon not soft, it might even eat it. As the fear in her heart grew, Lung Ruoxue was no longer a weak woman in the eyes of the Centipede clan leader. She was a demon. That's right, brutal demon. It was an extremely terrifying demon that was not even as big as its head. It really wanted to ask, "Great demon, can you let me go?" So, it deeply regretted provoking Lung Ruoxue. Just as the Centipede clan leader was filled with worry and trying to think of a way, the 30-foot-tall flame not far away gradually extinguished. The flames on the giant spider and ant turned into two small flames and fused with another flame. Then, the small flames slowly floated beside the Centipede clan leader, but it did not continue to attack. But even so, it was enough to scare the Centipede clan leader out of his wits. With a casual glance, it discovered that its two little companions were no longer breathing, leaving only two stiff bodies, reminding them that they had once existed, and also reminding the Centipede clan leader that everything he saw was not a dream. Let me go. Woo. After hesitating for a long time, the Centipede tribe leader finally gave in under the threat of the little flame beside him. "I want tea." Lung Ruoxue spat out these two words indifferently. Then, she intentionally said in a dissatisfied tone, "Didn't you just say that the blood lotus flower's sacrifice would be worth it? Now, I also want your sacrifice to be worth it. You see, I've kept the bodies of your two little friends. I'm going to use them to refine weapons. In comparison, your body is more useful. Since you can refine pills and weapons, I've kept them alive." With such an explanation, the Centipede clan leader finally understood why Lung Ruoxue did not kill him. So it's because the living ingredients are fresher. The Centipede clan leader was very regretful, so regretful that his intestines were turning green. But was there any use in regretting now? It was a little confused. After a long silence, the Centipede tribe leader finally turned his gaze to the blood lotus flower and sobbed, "Little blood, are you going to watch me get killed by humans? The earlier you die, the earlier you reincarnate. I will pray for you." The blood lotus flower said without even thinking. Thanks hearing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but burst out laughing. This little flower was quite cute. His words were also sharp. Furthermore, to the Centipede clan leader's ears, how sad would those words be? Sure enough, when the Centipede clan leader heard this, tears streamed down his face. At first, he cried silently, but in the end, he simply burst into tears. As he cried, he complained, "Little flower, you are too heartless. I have protected you for tens of thousands of years. Now that you have a new love, it's fine if you don't want me anymore. How can you let the owner of your new love kill me? Woo, how could you hurt my fragile heart like this? I'm so sad. I don't want to live anymore. You don't stop me." As he cried and cried, the Centipede clan leader wanted to use his head to bang against the mountain wall. However, before he did so, he intentionally looked at Lung Ruoxue. In the end, his gaze stopped on the little red flower for a very long time before he turned back reluctantly. "Don't stop me. I'm going to commit suicide." When Lung Ruoxue, Song and the blood lotus saw this, they didn't speak. Other than the sound of sobbing, the entire place was silent. However, at this moment, all three of their attention was focused on the Centipede clan leader. As the Centipede clan leader's head got closer to the mountain wall, it should have hit the wall with a bang. However, the three of them waited for a moment, and no one heard the sound of the wall hitting. The Centipede clan leader turned his head again and roared with grief and anger, "You guys are too much. There's no humanity at all. You saw that I was about to commit suicide, but you didn't stop me. Woo, bad guy. You're all bad guys. Didn't you tell us not to stop them?" Lung Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines as she said this in a speechless manner. In fact, what she wanted to say was that she was fine with both the living and dead centipedes, so she didn't want to stop them. Moreover, they weren't friends, so what was there to stop? In any case, the centipede would end up dead in the end. If he committed suicide, he might be able to escape earlier. Thus, Lung Ruoxue was very supportive of its wise choice. That's right. You already told us not to stop you. If we really do stop you, won't we just ruin your plans? Azure also laughed evilly. I said I'm not allowed to stop you, and you really don't care if I'm dead or alive. Do you have to be so inhumane? The centipede fire roared. Little centipede, can you please recognize our relationship? Don't be so stupid, you're on our side. What does your life or death have to do with us? Why do we have to be kind to you? Azure reminded him. If it wasn't for the fact that Beastie was confused, it wouldn't have said such nonsense to the other party. Fortunately, after listening to Lung Ruoxue and Song's words, the Centipede clan leader finally regained some of his rationality and wasn't as stupid as before. Wu, you, what do you want? Little blood has already been taken by you guys, I have nothing left, and you guys still won't let me go? After a long time, the Centipede clan leader finally woke up completely and asked, You're Wu Cheng's subordinate, it's impossible for us to let you go. Song replied with a smile after hearing the words of the Centipede clan leader. Do you know that you're going against God Lord Fogripple? You guys stole her things, she won't let you guys go. Aren't you afraid? The Centipede clan leader asked in confusion. It didn't know where this man and beast had gotten the courage to steal food from God Lord Mistripple's mouth. This was simply courting death. Even if we don't snatch that slut's things, she won't let us off. We're natural enemies, and we're destined to kill each other. So, it doesn't make much of a difference to us whether we snatch her things or not. Do you understand now? Azure said with a smile. Understood. The Centipede race chief wanted to cry, but no tears came out. So these two fellows had a grudge against God Lord Mistripple to begin with. Then it could be considered to have run into the hands of the enemy. No wonder it was unwilling to let it go. After understanding this, the Centipede clan leader felt that he could only wait for death. However, it still couldn't help but ask, Can you give me a quick death? Don't let me die too painfully. Chapter 2706, Don't Stop Me. 3. It depends on the situation. Lung Ruoxue replied calmly. The moment the Centipede clan leader heard this answer, he felt extremely unsettled. What was the meaning of this? Can you not torture me like this? Give him a quick one? Unfortunately, Lung Ruoxue did not know what the Centipede clan leader was thinking, and Qingju did not tell her either. However, she could more or less sense the Centipede clan leader's gloominess. She chuckled evilly and continued to ask, Since you're the leader of the Centipede clan, where are your clansmen? Call him out for me to see. Lung Ruoxue didn't want to leave any hidden dangers behind. Since she had captured the Centipede clan leader, she naturally had to deal with his clansmen to avoid any trouble. I don't have any clansmen. I'm the only one in my clan. The Centipede clan leader replied honestly. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she was conflicted. You're alone, and you still have the nerve to call yourself the clan leader? You're clearly a commander with a pole. What about them? Where are the clansmen? Lung Ruoxue did not give up. She pointed at the dead spiders and ants. They don't have it either. The Centipede clan leader said, a little embarrassed. Lung Ruoxue did not know what to say. Seeing Lung Ruoxue's distrustful gaze, the Centipede clan leader was so scared that his heart was trembling. He quickly explained, It's like this. The lifespans of insect-type beasts from the deity world are extremely short. Not only are we weak, but we also have many natural enemies. Therefore, it's extremely difficult for us to survive in the deity world. Tens of thousands of years have passed, and our clansmen have either died or been killed. Now there are only 3 of us left in our branch. So, we're very miserable. As he spoke, the Centipede clan leader wanted to play the emotional card again. However, Lung Ruoxue was completely unmoved. She only subconsciously glanced at Song. Seeing Song nod, Lung Ruoxue then stopped doubting the Centipede clan leader's words. Then, she took out a rope and tied up the Centipede tribe leader, who was tactful and did not struggle, firmly. She then threw him into the house with the other 2 behemoths. After she was done, Lung Ruoxue smiled at Song and said, Song, can we leave this time? Yes. However, There are still some collections of the three beastie in this mountain. We have to steal them. Azure smiled evilly. I know the place. The blood lotus hurriedly said upon hearing this. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she felt a little sympathy for the centipede clan leader's three beasties. They were protecting a little flower who was a traitor. However, this was good. It was very much to her liking. Following that, under Xiaohua's guidance, the centipede clan leader and the other two beasts' collection became Lung Ruoxue's. The three beasts had collected a lot of good things over the years, including countless high-quality medicinal herbs. However, according to the blood lotus flower's complaint, these medicinal herbs were collected by the three of them to give to the mist ripple bitch. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she felt even more at ease. It would be a waste not to take Fog's things. After tidying up the treasures of the three beastie, Lung Ruoxue was prepared to let Song bring her home. Who knew that Song would wave his hand and ask her to wait? Then, she heard Song raise his voice and roar at the sky. Wavering bitch! I sold your petals for 1 jingsher each, and the blood lotus flower that you've been coveting now belongs to me. Ha! This arrogant laughter, accompanied by the pressure Song Yen released, spread throughout the entire divine realm. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue broke out in cold sweat. Why didn't he run away after doing something bad? Why did he announce it to the world? However, in the entire immortal realm, only Azure would dare to do this. He just didn't know if Fog would be so angry that she would vomit blood after hearing these provocative words. Lung Ruoxue was suddenly filled with anticipation. The facts proved that she had guessed correctly. At this moment, although Wu Xiao had been healing in seclusion, Song's voice was too powerful. The barrier she had set up could not block it at all. Therefore, when the voice entered her ears, she, who was healing, spat out a mouthful of dark red blood and fainted from anger. By the time she woke up and teleported to the mountain where the blood lotus flower grew, the mountain was already empty. The extremely furious Wu Xian was so angry that she directly used her divine power to bombard the innocent mountain. In the end, she fainted beside the broken mountain rocks. The frightened subordinates then hurriedly carried her back to the divine master's estate. At the same time, in the Lung family's residence in the land of demons, there was a long silence because of the provocative words that came from the sky not long ago. At that time, Uncle Long and the others were chatting in the living room. The people present at that time included the Ascender Alliance's chief and Li Jing. As they did not see Lung Ruoxue, they did not leave. However, just as everyone was having a good time chatting, the sudden voice gave them a big shock. Thanks in comparison, Uncle Long and the others were still calm. Although they were breaking out in cold sweat, the Ascender Alliance's master and Li Jing had already turned pale and ashen. Because the petals of rime ice were bought by the two of them. If this matter was known by Wu Yen, she would probably come to settle the score with them. After an unknown period of time, the Alliance Master's question finally came from the silent living room. That voice just now, was it Miss Lung's little white cat? Yes, I am. Uncle Long looked at the Alliance Master sympathetically. He had heard from the Alliance Master that Song had sold 2 petals to him and Li Jingkai to save them. When he thought of this, he immediately consoled her. Don't worry, no one will know that you bought the petals of the mist ripple bitch. Can you not call her a bitch in front of them? The Alliance Master couldn't help but feel disgusted. He really couldn't take it anymore. Although he didn't have a good impression of Wu Chen, this illegitimate master god, at least on the surface, he would still respect her. But now, these guys in front of him had to add the word bitch when they talked about Wu Chen, which made him quite uneasy. However, he also knew that the other party would not care about his thoughts. Therefore, he only thought about it in his heart and did not intend to say out such a request that would obviously annoy the other party. After some thought, he couldn't help but ask, who is that little white cat? So gutsy. When he said this, he couldn't help but wipe off his cold sweat. He couldn't deny that he was really a little frightened. Do you know Song? That little white cat is Song. Uncle Long didn't intend to hide it and told the truth. Song? Are you talking about the god-protecting pagoda, Ling Song? The Alliance Master's eyes suddenly widened as he spoke in disbelief. Anyone who had lived in the divine realm for a long time would know of Tsong's great name. However, he had never thought that the little white cat would be Tsong. Uncle Long nodded and didn't say much. On the other hand, the Alliance Master was still in shock. His mouth was half open, and after a long time he finally said, "Wasn't it said that Azure doesn't have a master? Then what is its relationship with Miss Lung? Tsong has acknowledged little Shui-er as his master. But haven't you heard?" Uncle Long pretended to be surprised, then put on a look of realization. "It's not strange that you didn't hear about it. How could the ripple which lets such an important piece of news spread? And our Shui-er keeps a low profile, she's never willing to show off about these things." Hearing Uncle Long's words, the Alliance Master didn't know what to feel. In fact, he really wanted to ask, "Sir, aren't you showing off by saying this?" However, he knew that he must not offend his master in her territory. At the same time, he felt that he should reconsider Leng Ruox's position. From the looks of it, if the Ascender Alliance wanted to befriend Leng Ruoxue, they were obviously trying to climb up the social ladder. However, he was not willing to make the Ascender Alliance think that they were beneath Leng Ruoxue. After all, he was an extremely proud person. This fact made him feel rather conflicted. He didn't even know what to do. However, he was even more unwilling to give up the chance to befriend Leng Ruoxue. The Alliance Master fell silent again. Uncle Long and the others also knew that the General Lord had suffered too much today, so they ended their conversation considerately and arranged for the General Lord and Li Jing to rest. Without outsiders, Uncle Long and the others were able to chat more freely. AI. He didn't know where Shui had been taken by Tsong. "There's no news either," Uncle Long said with a bitter expression. "Who said it wasn't he? That detestable girl, isn't she afraid that we'll be worried?" At the mention of this, the master of the Ning family gritted his teeth in hatred, but he couldn't contact Shui, so he couldn't do anything. However, he was very clear that the reason he couldn't contact Shui was definitely Tsong's doing. Because other than him, no one else had such great ability. It can't be considered as no news. Didn't Azure mention the blood lotus flower before? Dongfang Yu couldn't help but interject when he heard the two old men's complaints. But then he received angry glares from Uncle Long and Master Ning, and then he heard the two angry, handsome old men shout in unison, "Do you know where the blood lotus flower is?" Hearing this, Dongfang Yu could only keep his mouth shut. "So, I can't afford to offend a jealous old man." Seeing that Dongfang Yu was being honest, Uncle Long felt that it was not interesting, so he left the living room in a huff. After he took the lead and left, the people present also left one by one. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue had no idea that her family was in a small argument because of her whereabouts. "Tsong, where are we going? Aren't you going home?" Seeing Tsong bring her to a foreign city, Leng Ruoxue was lost. Chapter 2707. "Madam, I know I was wrong. Go back. However, let's go do something else before we go back." Azure smiled evilly. "What?" Leng Ruoxue was very puzzled. Was Tsong still not satisfied after taking away the blood lotus flower that the Ripple Mist slut had taken a fancy to? "What else do you want to do?" It had to be said that Leng Ruoxue was right again. In reality, ever since Leng Ruoxue and the others were attacked by the fog, Azure had been holding back a grudge. It was just that it had been holding back and not looking for trouble with the fog. It was so patient because it was waiting for the day the blood lotus flower ripened. It had long decided that the moment the blood lotus flower ripened would be the moment when it would feel the most heartache. After all, who would be able to stand the fact that something that they had been looking forward to for tens of thousands of years now belonged to someone else? But now, it felt that since it had stolen the blood lotus flower, it could do something else in passing. In any case, they were all rhyme ice, so it was the same as stealing one, and it was the same as stealing two. In that case, it didn't seem like it was a big deal to get more. With this thought in mind, it brought Leng Ruoxue back here. Of course, this was only their first stop. After all, it was the closest to the nameless mountain where the blood lotus flower resided. "Girl, I remember you saying that you've recruited all the guild leaders in the godly continent?" Azure asked with a smile. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded. This matter was no longer a secret in the Devil's Land. What's the use of guilds that do quests in the godly continent? If you want to accept us, then accept those from the divine realm. You bastard! Wiping out all the guild quests in the divine realm is the same as cutting off half of the arm of that wastrel. Azure couldn't help but remind him. You're here for the divine realm's quest guild? Lung Ruoxue was enlightened. Why would Azure come to an unfamiliar city for no reason? It turned out that he had the intention of taking on the guilds here for quests. However, wouldn't it be a little dangerous to take in all the quests in the divine realm? However, Lung Ruoxue truly felt that this was a good idea, especially after she had a taste of the benefits in the godly mainland. However, the guild had also accepted the divine realm's quest. She had never thought about it before. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about it, but it was only for a moment. After all, she was still afraid of alerting the enemy. She didn't want to drive that bitch, Wu Qing, crazy, but looking at Song's current thoughts, it was clear that he wanted to drive Wu Qing crazy. Or it could be said that it had already driven the Mist Ripple crazy. When she thought of this, Lung Ruoxue didn't wait for Song to reply and couldn't help but ask, Azure, you've completely angered Rhyme by snatching away the Blood Lotus flower. Shouldn't we return to Demon City first to guard against the sneak attack of that wretched Rhyme? Don't worry, she doesn't even have the ability to launch a sneak attack now. That bitch was so angry at our little tricks that she vomited blood and even fainted a few times. Song covered his mouth with his furry little paws and laughed secretly. You vomited blood because of your little tricks, right? Lung Ruoxue could swear that she really did not do anything. She had been completely abducted by Tsang. However, she was on Tsang's side, so it didn't seem like there was any point in denying it. This was because Wu Jing must have already determined that she was also involved. From what you've said, the Ripple Mist bitch's injuries must have worsened. Why don't we sneak attack her? Lung Ruoxue suggested after some thought. Take her life while she's sick. What a classic saying. Girl, although I agree with your opinion, you should know that a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. It won't do us any good if we sneak attack her now. If she decides to go all out and fight to the death, we'll both suffer heavy losses, and that's not the result I want. Azure calmly analyzed. After hearing Wan Song's opinion, Lung Ruoxue calmed down. That's right. With the crazy personality of the Rhyme people, they might really fight to the death with them. Of course, that was if they forced the other party into a corner. Thanks, but what they were doing now was not enough to drive Wu Qin crazy. Lung Ruoxue was conflicted and at a loss. For a moment, she did not know what to do. Song saw through Lung Ruoxue's thoughts and smiled. Girl, although the Blood Lotus flower is very important to Wu Yen, it's not enough for her to fight to the death. You know, based on my understanding of her, she must be thinking about snatching the Blood Lotus flower back one day, so this is not a dead end for her. But once we make her lose her way out, she will definitely not let us have an easy time. I know that bitch too well. Alright, I'll do as you say. Cold's words made Lung Ruoxue unable to refute. Azure nodded in satisfaction, then pointed at the city gate with his claw. Let's start from here on the quest to conquer the divine realm. Let's go. Oh, set off. Let's go. Suddenly, a young and tender voice rang out. Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines. This little flower that had always been in Song's arms, he didn't expect her to be so eager to see the world in chaos. Moreover, it didn't know who it had inherited its boisterous and lively personality from. Let's go. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Just like that, a man, a beast, and a flower began their journey to subdue the Divine Realm Mission Guild. Half a month later, other than the headquarters of the Mission Guild in Imperial City, all the other mission guilds in the Divine Realm were now in Lung Ruoxue's possession. Lung Ruoxue had earned a lot from those mission guilds. Of course, for the sake of the Mission Guild's business of infernal affairs, she had left some resources for the Mission Guild. Otherwise, the Divine Master's residence would have been suspicious. With Azure's violent cooperation, The guild leaders of the major cities' quest guilds had almost no chance to resist and were obediently captured. Lung Ruoxue was naturally happy to be at ease. After sweeping through the entire god realm, Lung Ruoxue, who thought that she could go home, was in a mess when she found out that Song was going to the imperial city and had taken over the guild headquarters. The rhyme bitch had just been provoked, and now they're taking the initiative to send themselves to her door. If Rhyme were to know that the two of them had gone to the imperial city, she wondered if she would come and chase after them with her injuries. Lung Ruoxue was suddenly curious. However, she was still unwilling to waste her time in the headquarters of the imperial city. She was a little homesick. More importantly, she knew very well that when she returned home, her godfather and the others would probably complain again. So, thinking of this, she was a little sad. Azure, are you sure you want to go to the imperial city? Lung Ruoxue knew that it would be hard to convince Song, who was in high spirits, so she could only ask. Of course, we've already come this far, so how can we return empty-handed? Song heavily nodded. They were now very, very close to the imperial city, only less than 1,000 meters away. If the guards were more focused, they might be able to discover their presence. Lung Ruoxue could not help but secretly praise them. But now, the attention of the city guards was obviously not on them. In other words, she didn't expect the two of them to dare to come to U City. Then it'll change my appearance. Jian Song's will was very firm, so Lung Ruoxue could only give up her life to accompany him. Why are you changing your appearance? When Azure heard this, he blinked his eyes and a puzzled expression appeared on his face. Chapter 2708. Madam, I'm sorry, too. You don't want us to enter the city like this, do you? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Song had previously said that they couldn't provoke Rhyme now. If they really went in like this, wouldn't Wu Qing go crazy? Can't I? Azure asked innocently. Lung Ruoxue looked at Song, then glanced at the little red flower that it had been holding in its arms. She sighed and said, Do you think we're suitable to enter the defense city in our current state? She was in Wu Xiao's eyes, and Song was seen as a life and death enemy by Wu Xiao. In addition, the blood lotus flower in Song's arms had been coveted by Wu Xiao for a long time. This man, beast, and flower was definitely sending a sheep into the tiger's mouth. Of course, the tiger was only injured, but there was no guarantee that the tiger would not come to catch them when it heard that they were coming. Such a fact made Lung Ruoxue extremely confused. Previously, Azure had said that they couldn't take advantage of a certain someone's illness to launch a sneak attack, as that might make the other party desperate. However, at this moment, wouldn't what they were prepared to do make the other party go crazy? Lung Ruoxue deeply felt that as long as Wu Qin found out that they had entered the imperial city, that old woman would definitely appear with injuries. At that time, I'm afraid I won't be able to avoid it even if I want to. She even suspected that although Song said that he couldn't take advantage of Wu Xiao's serious injuries to launch a sneak attack, he still hadn't given up on the idea of angering her to death. It had to be said that angering the other party to death was indeed much easier than a sneak attack. I don't think it's inappropriate at all. Girl, we're going to use City to do something, not to fight with Wu Yen. I think, with her current injuries, as long as we don't provoke her, she won't easily make a move. That person is very patient. You have to believe in her self-control. Song knew Lung Ruoxue's thoughts and comforted her. Wasn't this considered a provocation? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. However, she knew that in Song's heart, as long as they didn't attack the Divine Master's estate, it definitely wouldn't be considered a provocation. Moreover, the things they had to do in the guild for the mission. Alright, it was not a provocation if it was not exposed. In normal business dealings, the Divine Master's estate couldn't possibly not make any money. Just like that, Lung Ruoxue calmed down. Then she carried Song, and Song carried the red blood lotus flower. The human, beast, and flower swaggered towards the entrance of the imperial city. When they arrived at the imperial city's gate, the guards' eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they saw Lung Ruoxue. Their mouths were half open, and they could not form a complete sentence for a long time. And it wasn't just one guard. The guards at the city gate all looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw her. Their incomparably shocked and incredulous gazes caused Lung Ruoxue to feel depressed. This was the tragedy of being famous. He would be recognized wherever he went, especially when he was in the enemy's territory. I want to enter the city. After feeling depressed, Lung Ruoxue immediately adjusted her state of mind. She glanced at the guard and deliberately put on a noble and cold appearance as she spoke calmly. Thanks. Upon hearing this, the guards instantly went into a frenzy and caused a commotion. After the commotion, the guard leader braced himself and asked with a vigilant look, "What are we doing in the city? Do you need to ask so clearly? In the past, Imperial City didn't need to do this." Lung Ruoxue pretended to be unhappy. "This is a new rule." The leader of the guards said blindly, but he couldn't help but think in his heart, others can choose not to ask, but you, a dangerous terrorist, can't not ask. "Oh, I'm going into the city to look for the Guild of Quests. I have a quest to issue." Hearing the guard's words, Lung Ruoxue was kind and did not expose him. Instead, she cooperated and took the initiative to explain. When he heard that Lung Ruoxue was here to issue a mission to the guild, the guard leader was instantly relieved. However, after he calmed down, he felt that something was not quite right. "Wait a minute. You don't have to come to Imperial City to issue a mission, right?" One had to know that branch guilds for missions were everywhere in the divine realm. Why did he have to come here? With that thought, the guard leader began to doubt Lung Ruoxue's motive and asked, "The guild has quests everywhere. Why did you come to Imperial City?" These words were met with Lung Ruoxue's extremely disdainful gaze. Following that, the guard leader heard Lung Ruoxue sneer, "My mission level is too high, so I can only come to the headquarters. If it wasn't for the fact that the mission was always in U City, I really wouldn't want to come here. Why don't you suggest that we change the location of the mission headquarters? If that's the case, I wouldn't have come." Always changing places? Did he dare to mention it? The leader of the guards was incited by Lung Ruoxue's words and instantly wilted. He explained with a smile, "I just wanted to ask more clearly. I don't have any other meaning. Who asked you to be a terrorist?" He had to be on guard. "I understand. I know that my relationship with Rime Ice has given you a headache in the past, but please believe in my sincerity. This time, I came to Imperial City only to find the Mission Guild to issue a mission." Lung Ruoxue was very understanding. The expression on her beautiful face was so sincere, causing the guard leader to feel guilty. He truly felt that he shouldn't have suspected Lung Ruoxue. If she really wanted to cause trouble, would she have obediently entered the city through the city gate? However, even if he believed Lung Ruoxue's words, he didn't dare to make the decision to let her into the Imperial City. He could only smile carefully and say, "Miss Lung, I can't make the decision if you want to enter the city. You have to go back and ask for instructions. Can you please wait for a moment?" "Sure." Lung Ruoxue smiled and nodded. At the same time, she transmitted a message to Azure, "Song, do you see? They don't trust us and are not willing to let us enter the city. Calm down. They won't dare to offend us at this time, so don't worry. They'll let us in," Azure said with confidence. Seeing how confident Song was, Lung Ruoxue naturally didn't say anything more. However, after the guard leader sent the news of Lung Ruoxue's arrival at the Imperial City back to the Divine Master's residence, it caused everyone in the Divine Master's residence to be in a state of panic. When Xia Yi and the other two hierarchs saw this, they could only hold an emergency meeting to discuss this matter. However, after a long discussion, they still could not come to a conclusion. Not only were their opinions unable to reach a consensus, but they were also divided into several groups. There were those who agreed to let Lung Ruoxue into the city to settle some matters, and there were also those who requested to reject her. There were even those who maintained a neutral stance. The number of people in these three groups was similar, so it was difficult to make a final decision in a short time. In the end, Xia Yi and the other two Reverend God-level experts were left with no choice. According to their original intention, they could let Lung Ruoxue into the Imperial City. However, as the Reverend God of the Divine Master's estate, her every word and action would attract too much attention. Hence, they could not voice their opinions at will. Otherwise, they might even incur the Divine Master's dissatisfaction. After thinking for a long time, the three reverent gods unanimously decided to let the Divine Master make the decision. After sending a guard to inform the black-robed man who was guarding the entrance of the Divine Master's secret room, Xia Yi and the other two felt that their mission was complete and went back to their own business. When the man in black found out that Leng Ruoxue had come to Imperial City, his first thought was that this was a matter of great importance. In addition, the Divine Master had said before he went into seclusion to heal his injuries that unless it was an extremely important matter, he was not to disturb her. Chapter 2709. Madam, I'm sorry. 3. The man in black was naturally aware of the grudges between the Divine Master and Leng Ruoxue. Hence, after sensing that the situation was extremely troublesome, he immediately entered the secret chamber for further instructions. Wu Yan's face was pale. She was sucking blood to heal her injuries. When she heard that Leng Ruoxue had come to the Imperial City, she was so agitated that she spat out a mouthful of blood. The man in black was so frightened that he knelt down immediately. She still dared to come here? You're really not afraid of death. Wu Mo's small face was pale and bloodless. She narrowed her beautiful eyes and said with some resentment, if it wasn't for Leng Ruoxue, how would she be injured? If it wasn't for Tsong's provocation, how could her injuries have worsened? But now, not only did those people not know how to hide, but they also dared to approach her. They were really tired of living. Mist gritted her teeth in hatred, and at the same time, a bone-piercing pain came from the bottom of her heart, causing her face to turn even paler. How detestable! If she wasn't injured, she would have captured Leng Ruoxue and tortured her in every way possible before sucking her fresh blood dry. She believed that Leng Ruoxue's blood would be even more perfect than the blood lotus flower since she had the chaotic divine body. However, she could only think about it now. She hated it. Delicious food was right in front of her, but she couldn't get it. If this happened to anyone, it would definitely be a fatal blow. But now, she had no choice but to endure. This was because she was very clear about her own situation. Even though that person had left the god world, she had Song to protect her. She could not do anything to Leng Ruoxue. Ah! Wu Yan lost her mind and roared madly. Her embarrassment turned into anger, and her face was twisted with hatred. The kneeling man in black was so scared that his whole body began to tremble. Suddenly, 2 vines with suction cups flew out of Ripple's hands and stabbed into the man's body. The man in black revealed a pained expression, but before he could scream, the man in black stopped breathing in a few seconds. After a few minutes, the man in black turned into dust and disappeared without a trace. After venting her anger, Wu Yan gradually calmed down. Then, she shouted towards the outside of the secret room, "Men! Please give your orders, master." Another man in black walked in. After this black-clothed man entered the secret room, he didn't see the person who had entered before. He had already guessed that the person was most likely dead. Let Leng Ruoxue into the city and send people to keep a close watch on her. Wu Xian gritted his teeth and said, she had thought it through. Even if she forbade Leng Ruoxue from entering the Imperial City, it would be useless. Not only would that fellow not listen to her, he might even force his way in. At this moment, it was obvious that he had no way of intimidating Leng Ruoxue. Since that was the case, why not fulfill her wish? Leng Ruoxue wouldn't be able to cause any big waves in his territory anyway. Wu Yan was very confident in her control of the Imperial City. Otherwise, she would not have dared to make such a decision. The man in black received the order and immediately turned to leave. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue was already getting impatient from waiting outside the city gates. Your godlord's estate's efficiency is so low. It's been so long and you still haven't come to a conclusion? Leng Ruoxue's face was filled with dissatisfaction. After she finished speaking, she even took a bite of the fruit in her hand. At this moment, she would not just stand there and wait like a fool. Instead, she had already taken out a reclining chair, a pot of tea, fruits, snacks, and other food. She ate while waiting. Seeing her like this, the guards who heard her words were all speechless. Many of the guards couldn't help but mutter to themselves, "This ancestor. You're eating and drinking, what's wrong with waiting?" He wasn't tired. Unlike them, not only were they exposed to the scorching sun, but they also had to endure the immense pressure from Lung Ruoxue and the little kitten. They were on the verge of a mental breakdown. Of course, no one dared to say this out loud. Otherwise, they would all die. However, they didn't have to wait for too long before news came from the Divine Master's estate. They had agreed to let Lung Ruoxue into the city. Hearing this, Azure smiled proudly. "Girl, I told you that this mist ripple slut knows her own limits. Yes, we're here to do something, not to find trouble. Why can't she let us enter the city?" Lung Ruoxue chimed in with a smile. The guards couldn't bear to listen to their conversation. After all, they were members of the Divine Master's estate. How could they listen to him calling the Divine Master a bitch in front of them? At this moment, they wished they had calluses in their ears. Otherwise, if the Divine Master knew about this, he would kill them to silence them. So, they truly felt that guarding the door was a life-threatening job. The guards who were cheering in their hearts excitedly sent off Lung Ruoxue and Song's team. Their eyes were filled with tears as they cheered in their hearts. They had finally sent away the terrifying woman and beast. It wasn't easy. After entering the city, Lung Ruoxue, who was walking on the streets of U City, could clearly feel that someone was following them in the dark. However, she did not pay much attention to it and continued to walk calmly on the busy streets. She couldn't be blamed for being so calm. After walking in the city for a while, almost all the passers-by in the city were watching them, so they could only force her to calm down. When they finally reached the headquarters, Lung Ruoxue saw the main doors and quickly entered. "May I know what you need help with?" When the waiter sensed that someone had entered, he gave a standard welcome speech. However, the moment he saw Lung Ruoxue's beautiful face, he forcefully swallowed the last few words. Thanks, it wasn't because of how beautiful she was, but because she was the famous Lung Ruoxue. Oh my God! Lung Ruoxue! What was Lung Ruoxue doing here? He didn't see wrong, did he? The waiter's eyes widened in disbelief. He was afraid that his eyes were playing tricks on him, so he even rubbed his eyes vigorously. In the end, he realized that Lung Ruoxue was still standing in front of him with a smile. With a bitter smile, the waiter stuttered. Miss Lung, welcome. Please, may I ask?" After speaking for a long time, the waiter still couldn't say a complete sentence. His small face was red from holding back, and he was extremely anxious. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she only smiled faintly and said, "I want to see your president." It was said that the current president of the mission headquarters was definitely a confidant of Fog Ice and was very loyal to Fog Ice. Sometimes, it seemed that his status was even higher than the 3 Reverend God-level experts in the Divine Master's estate. Hence, when she found out about this, Lung Ruoxue was especially interested in this president of the headquarters. However, when the waiter heard this, he said with an awkward expression, "It's not convenient for the guild leader to meet with guests right now." "What's wrong? Did you get beaten up?" Lung Ruoxue guessed. The waiter was speechless. He thought to himself, "Miss Lung, do you have a grudge against my guild leader? Can't you think of something better?" However, the waiter couldn't deny that this Miss Lung's guess was really accurate. Although the president wasn't really beaten up, he was almost beaten up. After thinking for a while, the waiter hesitated and said, "The guild leader wasn't beaten up. He's just sick." "You're sick? I'm the best at treating illnesses. Let me take a look at him." The moment Lung Ruoxue heard that there was a patient, she immediately perked up. The waiter didn't know what to say. Didn't they say that Lung Ruoxue didn't like to meddle in other people's business? Why was the other party's current performance so different from the legends? It's settled then. Take me to your president, I'll treat him. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but urge the waiter when she saw him standing there in a daze. Miss Lung knows how to treat illnesses? The waiter looked at Lung Ruoxue in disbelief. Ancestral secret recipe, guaranteed to cure all diseases. Lung Ruoxue said with the air of a quack. But my president's illness is not an ordinary illness. As the waiter spoke, his face revealed a look of sympathy. Then what are we waiting for? Quickly take me to your president, I promise to cure him. Lung Ruoxue promised seriously. However, the waiter's gaze was still filled with distrust. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue felt a little hurt. She looked at the waiter with hidden bitterness, causing the waiter's heart to beat wildly. Just as Lung Ruoxue was about to force the waiter to bring her to meet a certain president, the waiter could not stand the pressure from Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes and said, "I'll take you to the president." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue was elated. He followed behind the waiter. The waiter brought Lung Ruoxue out of the headquarters and turned to the back door. After entering from the back door, they took 2 more turns and finally, they arrived at a small, desolate courtyard in the back of the headquarters. Pointing at the small courtyard, the waiter said in a low voice, "The guild leader is inside. You can go in by yourself. I won't be accompanying you." With that, the waiter immediately left. Before he left, he looked around as if he was afraid that someone would discover that he had brought Lung Ruoxue here. Seeing that the waiter was acting sneaky, Lung Ruoxue even suspected that the waiter was lying to her. However, she soon heard a slight sound coming from a room in the courtyard. It sounded like a soft cry of pain. As he walked closer to the room, the pained cries grew louder. "Ayo! Ayo!" The sound continued to enter his ears. Lung Ruoxue was stunned for a moment. Then she pushed open the half-closed door and walked in. The room was not big. Other than a few chairs in the room, there was not a single decent piece of furniture. A man with his back facing them was sitting on a chair, his buttocks slightly jerking, looking like he was in great pain. The painful cry had come from his mouth. Sensing that someone had entered, the man with his back to the door suddenly turned around and begged for mercy. "Madam, I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." Chapter 27:10 Heroes Among Women 1. The 2 of them were stunned. The man who spoke was dumbfounded, while Lung Ruoxue was speechless and shocked. Who was this pighead? Could he be the guild leader of the headquarters of the Missions Guild? At this moment, the face of the man in front of her was so swollen that one could not even see his true appearance. His eyes were only a slit, and his lips looked like 2 fat sausages hanging from them. When she saw this image not far away, Lung Ruoxue could not help but sigh. The person who created this image was really ruthless. "Are you Miao Jie, the president of the Missions Guild?" Lung Ruoxue probed. She really could not believe that the pighead in front of her was the famous Miao Jie. "Why is Lung Ruoxue, what are you doing here?" Miao Jie was shocked. He was extremely shocked. He could not figure out why Lung Ruoxue would come here and even see him in this state. So, this was too embarrassing. At that moment, Miao Jie wished he could just kill himself. It was much better than Lung Ruoxue seeing his embarrassing state. Seeing Miao Jie's apocalyptic look, Lung Ruoxue smiled and consoled him. "President Miao, you don't have to feel embarrassed. Who doesn't have a tiger at home?" In this day and age, being afraid of one's wife was the way to go. So, your choice is wise. How did you know? Miao Jie tried his best to open his eyes wide to express his shock, but unfortunately, his eyes were swollen. No matter how hard he tried, there was only a thin slit. However, his subtle expression at this time completely revealed his inner thoughts. He would never believe that someone would dare to tell Lung Ruoxue about his family's matters. How did she guess that there was a tigress in his family? Could it be that Lung Ruoxue had been monitoring him all along? That's why she knew everything about him? Miao Jie made wild guesses. Lung Ruoxue, on the other hand, could tell what he was thinking with a single glance. At the same time, she could not understand how a person who did not even know how to hide his expression could become the president of the headquarters of missions. Could it be that the rumors were true, that he and Wu Yen had an unclear relationship? Lung Ruoxue felt that this was not impossible. After sighing, she replied honestly, "I'm guessing." Miao Jie's face revealed an expression of obvious distrust. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Why didn't the people from the headquarters trust her? She was very honest, okay? AI. The scars on your face are too obvious. I'm a woman, and I know that only women like to create such scars on their men to make them behave. I'm sure President Miao Jie isn't someone who can't keep his head down, right? Otherwise, your wife wouldn't have treated you like this. After being depressed for a while, Leng Ruoxue gloated. Who said that? Don't wrong me. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie was completely enraged. Boo! There's a tigress at home, how would he dare to mess around? This wasn't even a big deal. He had been beaten up so badly that he could not see anyone. If he really did something, he was afraid that his little life would be lost. It doesn't matter if I wronged you or not, right? The key is whether your madam believes you or not. Leng Ruoxue reminded him. After she said that, Miao Jie was completely listless. So, it was because madam didn't believe in his innocence that he was beaten up like this. Thanks, Miao Jie complained in his heart. All of a sudden, he had a flash of inspiration. His eyes, which were swollen to the point of a slit, burst out with a dazzling light. He looked at Leng Ruoxue with anticipation and said, Leng Ruoxue, you're a woman too. Can you help me? What can I help you with? Leng Ruoxue was taken aback. She truly felt that Miao Jie's train of thought was too erratic. When they first met, he was still shocked and alert. How could he ask her to help him in such a short time? Help me think of a way to make my madam believe me. No matter how I tried to explain, she wouldn't believe me. I'm really going to die. As if he had found someone to confide in, Miao Jie started to cry in front of Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue was a little speechless when she saw Miao Jie sobbing and treating her like a close sister. However, she still kindly reminded him, your wife doesn't believe you. It must be because you're untrustworthy. After saying that, Leng Ruoxue deliberately paused for a few seconds to look at Miao Jie's expectant eyes. Then, she continued, actually, I'm not very good at dealing with family problems. Besides, I have something important to tell you. What is it? As long as you help me solve my problems, I will help you deal with your own. Miao Jie immediately coaxed him. Really? Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked with a smile. Of course. It had to be real. Just help me. As long as you can find a way to make the tigress at home believe me, then you're my savior. Miao Jie began to flatter Leng Ruoxue. However, Leng Ruoxue was not a 3-year-old child. She would not easily believe Miao Jie's promise, so she did not say anything. Instead, she grabbed an old chair not far away, cleaned the dust, and sat down. Looking at Leng Ruoxue's nonchalant actions, Miao Jie felt a little worried. After choking for a while, Miao Jie began to persuade again, Leng Ruoxue, please help me think of a way. I'm really at my wit's end. If I had any tricks up my sleeve, I wouldn't have come to you for help. I told you I'm not good at dealing with family problems. Why are you looking for me? Leng Ruoxue continued to put on a cold and noble look. Didn't you just make it in time? If I look for someone else instead of you, I'll lose face again. Miao Jie's words sounded like he was going all out, but Leng Ruoxue was speechless. So it wasn't embarrassing to ask her for helps. Just because she had already seen the other party's embarrassing state? What the hell is this? Actually, Leng Ruoxue was quite happy to see Miao Jie in trouble. Although that guy was not related to him, he was still a member of Fog City. She was happy that the people of Fog City were unlucky. However, she didn't forget why she was here. So, she put on a thoughtful look. After thinking for a while, she said to Miao Jie, it's not that I can't help you think of a way, but can you really help me solve my problem? Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie suddenly felt that he had made his promise too early. With this thought in mind, he carefully asked, what do you want to see me for? Secret. Tell me first if you can help me solve it. Leng Ruoxue wasn't that stupid to tell him her thoughts right now. What if this guy went back on his word? As long as you don't ask me to do anything like murder or arson, I don't think there's any problem. After hesitating for a while, Miao Jie probed. Don't worry, I won't let you kill or set fire. Leng Ruoxue's solemn promise was only for him to act as a middleman and earn some pocket money for her. Chapter 27:11. Heroes Among Women, 2. If that's the case, I promise I can do it. Miao Jie's confidence was greatly boosted. Yes, although I believe in your integrity, it's better for you to make an oath. Leng Ruoxue suggested calmly. You still need to swear? Miao Jie was surprised. Leng Ruoxue did not believe him either. However, the two sides were enemies, so it seemed natural that she didn't believe him. Without waiting for Leng Ruoxue's explanation, Miao Jie started to fill in the gaps. Seeing Leng Ruoxue nod her head, even though he was unwilling, he still followed her instructions and made an oath. After the contract's rules confirmed it, the deal of help between the two of them was officially established. After finishing this step, Miao Jie began to urge Leng Ruoxue to help him find a way to deal with the tigress at home as soon as possible. Leng Ruoxue nodded calmly and asked Miao Jie about the habits of the tigers in his family. When Miao Jie heard Leng Ruoxue's question, he naturally did not say anything and did not hold back. He explained everything in detail, and the only thing he was short of explaining was the color of his wife's undergarments. Just as Miao Jie was talking so much that Leng Ruoxue could not stop him, a furious roar suddenly came from outside the door. Miao Jie, you're good. Even in this state, you still don't forget to hook up with little girls. I think you're really tired of living. As soon as he finished speaking, a tall, burly and rough-looking woman broke into the room. She was carrying a shoulder pole as thick as an adult's arm. Without saying a word, she smashed it towards Miao Jie's head. Leng Ruoxue barely dodged this attack. As she watched the shoulder pole smashing towards Miao Jie, she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for him. Ruthless. How ruthless. One look at this heroine and one could tell that she was a strong man with infinite strength. She wondered if Miao Jie's small body could take the blow with the carrying pole. However, just as Leng Ruoxue thought that the pole was going to hit Miao Jie's head, it suddenly changed direction and hit the place where Miao Jie had the most flesh on his body. In an instant, a ghostly cry and wolf's howl could be heard. Put, put, put. After a few hits, Miao Jie was knocked out. At this moment, the intrepid woman stopped and turned to look at Leng Ruoxue. She was even sizing her up. The woman stared at Leng Ruoxue for a long time, causing Leng Ruoxue's heart to be in turmoil. Just as Leng Ruoxue was afraid that the woman would lose her cool and give her a few shoulder pulls, the woman suddenly spoke. You look familiar. Do I know you? I don't think so. Leng Ruoxue could not help but wipe away the cold sweat on her forehead. This woman's personality was just as she had portrayed herself to be straightforward and straightforward. But you really do look very familiar. The woman you did not give up. Ugh. We're meeting for the first time today. Leng Ruoxue reminded. I know. I just thought you looked familiar. He didn't say he had seen you. The woman seemed to be talking to herself. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She had misunderstood. Following that, Leng Ruoxue heard the woman say, AI. Why would a woman make things difficult for another woman? Although I don't know why you're here, don't worry, I won't hit you. Even if I have to deal with someone, I'll be my man. Thank you for being so understanding. Leng Ruoxue's mouth twitched as she replied. Thanks, you're welcome. I just feel that you shouldn't be interested in my man. He's short, ugly, and as timid as a mouse. There are many men in the divine realm who are stronger than him. How could a beauty like you be interested in him, right? The woman continued. Leng Ruoxue didn't know how to respond to his words. She felt that this woman was very smart. On the surface, she had elevated what seemed to be her love rival and ridiculed her own man. However, in reality, her method of doing things without shedding blood had indeed caused many proud women to retreat. As for those who couldn't be returned, they were naturally those who couldn't be shown in public. At that time, this woman could do whatever she wanted. The woman in front of him could be said to be meticulous even in her rough ways. No wonder Miao Jie, the president of the mission headquarters, was so easily controlled by her. However, in order to reassure the lady, Leng Ruoxue explained calmly, I already have a fiancé. Oh, congratulations. The woman was even happier when she heard that. After she said that, she tried to probe Leng Ruoxue's intention. Lung Ruoxue had no choice but to tell her about the deal she had made with Miao Jie. When the woman heard this, she treated Lung Ruoxue as one of her own and took it upon herself. "Miss, if you have any difficulties, just tell me directly. There's no need to look for him. I'll definitely help you solve it." This way, she could also prevent this beauty from coming into contact with her man. "My difficulties. I have to solve the problem between the two of you first before President Miao can help me deal with it." Lung Ruoxue reminded. "No need to wait for him. Just tell me directly and I'll solve it. I guarantee you'll be satisfied." The fierce-looking woman patted her chest and promised. "Are you sure the people from the headquarters will listen to you?" Lung Ruoxue pretended to be in disbelief as she widened her eyes and asked. "I'm the president's wife of the headquarters of the Missions Guild. How dare they disobey me? Whoever doesn't listen to me will spread pillow talk to my man, and I guarantee that the other party will have to bear the consequences." The woman said with confidence. Her man was henpecked, and this was not a big secret in the mission headquarters. "If that's the case, I'll just tell you directly." Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and said with an innocent and uncertain expression, "Yes, you can just tell me. In the future, if you have any problems, you can come to me directly. There's no need to look for this guy." The woman reminded. "But I haven't settled your problem yet." After some thought, Lung Ruoxue hesitated. "What do we have to do? We're fine. You can see how close we are, right?" The woman asked, her eyes wide open. Lung Ruoxue took a look at the woman's rough appearance and then glanced at the unconscious Miao Jie. She could only brace herself and nod her head. This was probably the so-called beating is affection, scolding is love. This woman must be in love with Miao Jie. Lung Ruoxue came to an important conclusion and then threw Miao Jie to the side. She smiled at the woman and said, "I want to put a bounty on a person, is that okay?" "Who's the bounty?" "They'll give you a 20% discount." The woman was very satisfied with Lung Ruoxue's tactfulness, and her impression of her became even better. "Thank you, sister. I want the reward to be fog ice." Lung Ruoxue said calmly. "Who do you want to put a bounty on?" The woman thought she had heard wrong, so she asked again. "Wu Yen, I want to put a bounty on Wu Yen. Although I have put a bounty on her once in the divine realm, the effect didn't seem to be very good. Until now, I haven't heard of anyone successfully completing the mission. Therefore, I would like to officially issue a mission in the Mission Guild to officially put a bounty on Rime Ice. At the same time, I want to let all the major powers in the divine realm know of my sincerity. I'm not going to be stingy with my reward." Lung Ruoxue explained with a serious expression. Chapter 27:12. Heroes Among Women 3. The woman didn't say a word for a long time after hearing this. She was completely stunned. This little girl actually wanted to put a bounty on God Lord Mist Ripple? She was simply too bold, wasn't she? From what she knew, Lung Ruoxue was the only one in the entire God world who had done such a thing. Wait a minute. Lung Ruoxue. This young lady was Lung Ruoxue? The lady tried to hide her shock as she sized up Lung Ruoxue again. Finally, she asked carefully, "Why are Lung Ruoxue?" "Yep." Big sister finally recognized it. Lung Ruoxue smiled sweetly and nodded. When the woman heard this, she was completely resentful. What did she do? He actually treated Lung Ruoxue as a love rival. This really shouldn't have happened. She was so regretful that her intestines turned green. In the next second, the woman suddenly grabbed Lung Ruoxue's jade-like hand tightly and said agitatedly, "My idol! I finally have the chance to see one alive today. What's the situation?" Lung Ruoxue was dumbfounded. This woman's performance was too frightening. Normally, shouldn't she be regretful and fearful for recognizing him? How could he be so different? From what she said, she even saw him as an idol. If these words were to be heard by Wu Xian, Lung Ruoxue was very curious as to what she would think. But now, Lung Ruoxue felt that it was more important to deal with this intrepid woman in front of her. After half a minute of silence, Lung Ruoxue could not help but remind him, Your man is the guild master of the headquarters of the Missions Guild, and he's one of Rhyme Ice's men. I have a deep hatred for Rhyme Ice, so it's not very good for you to worship me like this, right? What's not good about it? Who can care about what I think? I'm telling you. Ever since I heard of your deeds, I've always yearned for you and have been friends with you for a long time. Now that I've suddenly seen you in person in front of me, I'm so happy. As the woman spoke, she even began to dance with joy. Lung Ruoxue broke out in a cold sweat. She was speechless and asked, "Aren't you afraid that your words will reach the ears of the mist?" "I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid of her," the woman said disapprovingly. "However, if you want to put a bounty on her in the headquarters, it seems a little troublesome." The woman then added. Lung Ruoxue nodded to show that she understood. In reality, the bounty on the miasma was just a temporary measure. She had long known that the mission headquarters would not issue such a bounty for her, so this was originally just an excuse. Subduing the mission headquarters was her real goal. But now, when she saw the woman's sincerity and her expression of wanting to help her, she didn't know how to respond. However, it was impossible for her to soften her heart and let go of the mission. After some thought, Lung Ruoxue insisted, "I have to put a bounty on Rhyme at the headquarters, or no one will believe my sincerity." So it was like this. "However, it's impossible for you to publish this mission in the headquarters. Why don't you ask the Dark Clan?" the woman suggested after thinking for a while. Dark Clan? Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes. This wasn't the first time she had heard of this term. She had even seen people from the Dark Clan before. However, that was only on the Divine Mainland. She had never seen anyone from the Dark Clan in the Divine World. The Dark Family is like an underground organization that specializes in doing some shady things. There won't be any problem if you leave this matter to them, the woman promised. "I'm doing this in an open and above-board manner." Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but remind the woman after hearing her words. This wasn't something shameful. She dared to provoke Fog Ice, so she wasn't afraid of being found out. I know. What I mean is, as long as you can afford it, there's nothing Dark Family can't do." The woman quickly changed her words. "I still have to pay?" Lung Ruoxue furrowed her brows, her expression conflicted. "If you don't pay, they won't do anything for you." After being speechless for a while, the woman said, "By the way, didn't you just say that as long as you can afford it, there's nothing they can't do?" Lung Ruoxue confirmed. Yes, the woman gritted her teeth. She didn't know why, but after saying a simple word, she suddenly felt like she had shot herself in the foot. And reality proved that her premonition was accurate. After Lung Ruoxue confirmed, she immediately replied in a light tone, "Then I'll pay for them to kill Rhyme Ice." "Thanks, they couldn't do this, ancestor." The woman burst into tears upon hearing this. She wanted to kneel down in front of Lung Ruoxue. "They can help you with anything other than this." After a long time, the woman finally came back to her senses and said with a bitter face, "But this is the only thing I need them to do. I can solve the rest by myself." Lung Ruoxue said with a face of dissatisfaction, "Ancestor, they really can't do this." The woman said helplessly, "Then why did you say there's nothing they can't do? Wouldn't that be misleading the consumers? Is there any place to complain about them?" Lung Ruoxue said in a serious tone. Upon hearing this, the woman knelt down beside Lung Ruoxue's feet with a thump. She hugged Lung Ruoxue's leg and howled, "Ancestor, I said the wrong thing. Can you not be like this?" Woo! Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue broke out in cold sweat. Did it have to be so exaggerated? She had only found fault with her and made a small joke. How could this woman be so scared? I've sinned. Lung Ruoxue laughed in her heart, but she still put on an innocent face and said, "It seems that the so-called Dark Family doesn't have much workability." "Forget it, they'll just find the mission headquarters. The mission headquarters won't be able to accept your mission." The woman's eyes were filled with tears as she spoke pitifully. "Do you not want to answer, or can't?" Lung Ruoxue asked seriously, "Is there a difference?" The woman was speechless. "Of course there is. If you don't want to answer it, it means you can answer it but you don't want to answer it. If you can't answer it, it means you can't answer it at all. Do you think there's a difference? Lung Ruoxue deliberately emphasized on her words, confusing the woman. In the end, the woman gave up on arguing with Lung Ruoxue and told her directly, the mission will always be something you don't want to accept, and you can't accept. Otherwise, whoever receives it will be in trouble. I see. It seems like I can only use force. Lung Ruoxue nodded to show that she understood. This was exactly what she wanted. Who should I use force on? At this moment, a voice interrupted their conversation. When the woman saw that Miao Jie had woken up, she was about to flare up again. However, she suddenly remembered that Lung Ruoxue was still around, so she quickly pulled Miao Jie into her arms. The man was hers, and she did not wish for her man to become an unlucky person for Lung Ruoxue to vent her anger on. Miao Jie grimaced in pain from her sudden pull, but he didn't dare to resist and let his wife hold him. Seeing that Miao Jie had woken up, Lung Ruoxue smiled and asked with concern, "You're awake? Does it still hurt? I was just talking about you with your madam." "Is that so?" Miao Jie was overjoyed. He could feel that his wife had become much gentler to him. He was ready to fulfill his promise. He smiled at Lung Ruoxue and said, "What do you want to talk to me about? As long as it's not murder or arson, there's no problem." Miao Jie's promise made the woman worried. However, before she could stop him, her stupid man had already asked Lung Ruoxue to make her request. What a woman's heart! Instantly, it was in his throat. However, Miao Jie didn't notice the woman's nervousness and asked again, "By the way, who did you say you were going to use force on?" "The mission headquarters." Lung Ruoxue smiled and answered, "Who is it?" Miao Jie tried his best to open his swollen eyes wide, thinking that there was something wrong with his ears. Then he tugged at his wife's sleeve and whispered, "Madam, pinch me. Am I hearing things? You're not hallucinating." She wants to put a bounty on Rhyme, and if the mission is always rejected, she's prepared to use force. The woman shouted at Miao Jie in exasperation. After that, she pinched his butt hard, causing Miao Jie to wail in pain. This caused him to be even more injured. Miao Jie's heart trembled as he turned to look at Lung Ruoxue with a pale face. "You want to put a bounty on the god lord of Rhyme Mist?" "Wrong, I want to put a bounty on that fog ripple bitch." Lung Ruoxue corrected him with a smile. Miao Jie was confused and asked, "What if I don't agree? Didn't your wife tell you? If you don't agree, you'll use force. At that time, your mission will. You know what I mean." Lung Ruoxue's words were definitely a threat. Miao Jie's face turned even paler in fear, and even the woman felt a little uncomfortable. At this moment, she truly felt how terrifying Lung Ruoxue was. Previously, when he talked and laughed with her, he was probably purely making fun of her. For the first time, she felt that she had kicked an iron plate. But at the same time, he was also glad that he had not done anything to offend Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. You really dare? This is the Imperial City, and the Divine Master is in the Divine Master's estate. If you act rashly, she won't let you off. After panicking for a while, Miao Jie miraculously calmed down. He hoped that he could convince Lung Ruoxue to give up on that idea. After all, this was the Divine Master's territory. Not everyone could do whatever they wanted. Who knew that when Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only smiled faintly and said, "Why would I not dare? Since I dared to come here, I've naturally made all the necessary preparations. So what if it's Imperial City? So what if Wu Xian was in the Divine Master's estate? Do you know how badly she's hurt? To tell you the truth, she doesn't have the energy to catch me even if she wanted to. Because she's hiding in a secret room in the Divine Master's estate to recuperate. Sir Divine Master is injured?" Hearing this, Miao Jie and the woman were shocked and said in unison. Chapter 27:13. Just looking, not saying. Word 1. Don't you guys know? Lung Ruoxue asked in surprise when she heard what the two of them said. She didn't expect that Wu Yen would keep it a secret so well that even her legendary confidant didn't know about her injury. However, Leng Ruoxue could understand it after thinking about it. After all, this was not something to be proud of. It would be bad if too many people knew about it. After listening to Leng Ruoxue's words, the two of them shook their heads like rattledrums. Both of them had a blank and helpless expression on their faces. However, upon closer inspection, their expressions were slightly different. Miao Jie was slightly worried, while the woman seemed to be gloating. After discovering this interesting fact, Leng Ruoxue said to Miao Jie sympathetically, "President Miao, aren't you the confidant of that bitch, Ripple? Don't tell me that you don't know about her leading her men to attack us." Miao Jie revealed a constipated expression and was in a dilemma. How was he supposed to answer this? He knew. Of course he knew. He also knew that the result of the attack wasn't too satisfactory, but he didn't know the details. In addition, after the people who went with Lady Fog Ripple to the land of demons returned, they all had an unfathomable expression and didn't talk about anything. It made it impossible for him to get any information. And now, the news of Lady Fog being injured came from the mouth of the enemy. Wait a minute. Was Leng Ruoxue lying to him? With a suspicious expression, Miao Jie could not help but look at Leng Ruoxue. To be honest, he did not believe Leng Ruoxue's words at all. However, he didn't dare to question it too much. Otherwise, if he angered this ancestor, he would be the one in trouble. He truly felt that now that he had angered Leng Ruoxue, even if the Divine Master was in the residence, he would not be able to save her. Hence, he thought he was very obedient and treated Leng Ruoxue with respect. However, that flash of suspicion did not escape Leng Ruoxue's eyes. Leng Ruoxue laughed nonchalantly. "I know you don't believe me, but do you think that I have the courage to come to you city? Why would I lie to you?" After saying this, Leng Ruoxue fell silent. When Miao Jie and his wife heard this, they looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. It had to be said that both of them believed Leng Ruoxue's words. If God Lord Fog Ripple was truly as Leng Ruoxue had said and was heavily injured, then they really had to worship Leng Ruoxue. Otherwise, if Leng Ruoxue were to make a move out of embarrassment, no one would be able to stop her. After thinking about it, Miao Jie calmed his mind and said, "I believe in Miss Leng's words, and am also grateful for everything you've done for the harmony between us husband and wife. However, our mission guild really can't agree to your request, so I hope you don't make things difficult for me." Miao Jie's words were very sincere. Leng Ruoxue, on the other hand, laughed calmly. "I didn't do anything for the harmony between you and your wife. At the same time, I've said that if you don't agree, you'll have to use force. So, please don't make things difficult for me. It'll be great if you cooperate, and we'll all be happy, right? To everyone's satisfaction, my ass. You're the one who's happy, aren't you?" Miao Jie's heart was filled with grief and indignation, but he put on an indifferent expression on his face and said, "Miss Leng, this request of yours is really difficult for me." "It's not difficult at all. You just have to make a choice. Whether it's okay or not, just say it." Leng Ruoxue urged, "I can't make the decision on my own. I need to discuss it with the vice president and the elders." After thinking for a while, Miao Jie thought of a way to delay. Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement and requested, "There's no problem with the discussion, but I want to be an audience." "This? No way." Miao Jie was very depressed. If Leng Ruoxue were to listen, would their meeting still be able to continue? Thanks, however, he didn't know how to stop Leng Ruoxue. Looking at how determined she was, he was also afraid that if he was too unyielding, it would backfire. "Idol, it's fine to let you listen, but no matter what the opinions of the people at the meeting are, you can't be angry." A wife knew her husband best. The tough woman who understood Miao Jie's thoughts immediately put forward her conditions. "No problem, I won't say a word. You just need to discuss and come up with a result." Leng Ruoxue was very understanding. In fact, she agreed to the meeting only because she wanted to save time. After all, the mission headquarters was different from the branch. There were countless vice presidents, elders, and other higher-ups here. If she were to subdue them one by one, she might be exhausted to death. If any of the higher-ups escaped, it would definitely be detrimental to the work of the spies in the headquarters. That was why Leng Ruoxue wanted to get rid of all the higher-ups in the headquarters in one go. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue had agreed, Miao Jie's heart that was in his throat could finally be slightly at ease. However, the fierce-looking woman was not as open-minded as Miao Jie. She felt that this might be the beginning of a disaster for missions. As the president's wife of the headquarters, she was calmer than Miao Jie at all times. However, she did not have the ability to stop Leng Ruoxue from taking action against the headquarters. After giving Miao Jie a few days to prepare for the meeting, the woman arranged for Leng Ruoxue to stay in the best guest house in the mission headquarters. She even came over every day to chat with Leng Ruoxue and strengthen their relationship. This was also a chance for her man to be lenient. At least, that was what she thought. As for Leng Ruoxue, she did not seem too happy about the appearance of the lady, but she was not too cold either. The two of them were chatting casually. Suddenly, Leng Ruoxue asked the lady, "How's your man's injury?" "He's already fine. Because there's something important to do, I gave him a healing medicinal pill. He's now alive and kicking again," the woman said with embarrassment. When she said this, her cheeks were slightly red. Leng Ruoxue looked at the woman in shock and disbelief. She originally thought that the woman would let Miao Jie's pig-like face recover naturally. After all, everyone in the mission headquarters knew that their president had been beaten up by the president's wife again. The woman felt even more embarrassed under Leng Ruoxue's gaze. She took the initiative and said, "Idol, it's boring to stay in the yard all day. Why don't we go out for a walk?" "Yeah, I haven't had a good tour of the headquarters yet." Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement. She stood up and allowed the lady to bring her around the spacious and luxurious courtyard of the headquarters. As he walked, a woman's voice suddenly came from behind a rock by the side of the courtyard's path. "Guild leader, why are you always avoiding me?" Hearing this, the intrepid woman was immediately enraged. Taking out her weapon, which was her carrying pole, the tall and sturdy woman immediately turned into a fierce gust of wind, whistling and blowing behind the rockery. Then, Leng Ruoxue heard a series of ghostly wails and wolf howls coming from behind the fake mountain. Sighing helplessly, Leng Ruoxue sat down on a stone bench by the side of the path and silently lit a row of candles for Miao Jie. What a pitiful fellow! Why didn't he run further away if he wanted to steal a fish? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.